Brands Hatch for round 1 of the Lotus on Track Elise Trophy. Well, aside from all the racing this weekend, hundreds of Lotus enthusiasts have flocked to the circuit here at Brands to take part in the Lotus celebration.
It's great fun. Everybody's really friendly, and that's the main thing.
You'll be finishing the race?
Absolutely, guaranteed.
Last year we had a full grid of 32 cars, which was brilliant in itself. This year we've got 2 full grids.
So out of you 3, who's it going to be?
Me.
So the Class A cars are heading out for the very first race of the season. Here's our Simon Hill with the grids.
Well, thank you, Gemma. As you can see, the cars are making their way out on circuit at a very, very cold Brands Hatch. In fact, snow during qualifying put an awful lot of pressure on the drivers to perform. But it was BJ Chong who took pole position from Quinn Jewell, Harding, Hans Baumhart coming back, and Steve Wenzel rounding out 6th place. Martin Roberts, Russ Treasure, Stuart Moore and Stuart Kirkbride. As you go round the rest of the grid, Matthew Bartlett in Berry amongst others going down the grid, the appropriately named Peter Driver, Tom Chataway really competitive, enjoying his racing. And near in the back of the grid we have guys like Tom Verrier, Joanna Hodinot enjoying her racing, Adam Hamilton-Fletch and Damien Murray on row 15. And that shows you just how many cars we've got on the grid here at Brands Hatch. It's incredibly popular, and there's going to be racing action from the very front to the very back of the grid. As you can see, the cars rolling their way to the start-finish line. The 38 car is our pole position man of BJ Chong, and PQR stands for Paul Quinn Racing. He's a very, very experienced racer. He knows his stuff. And the 70 car of Marcus Jaw, very distinctive livery there as the 69 car lines up alongside. That's Paul Harding. So we watch for the lights to come on. The 3 lights here at Brands Hatch. Great start there from Paul Quinn. He gets a really neat getaway, lots of traction, lots what you need here at Brands Hatch. He's just about got enough of a gap not to worry about the cars behind, but our pole position man, BJ Chong, already has been passed, and he's going to be having to fight his way back through. Now, I'm joined by a man who knows all about racing sports cars, Rob Bath. This looks like fun, Rob.
It does. It's a very busy Brands Hatch, and a packed field as they stream up towards Druids there. On board now with Tom Chataway. Good line from him as he comes around, just defending his position hard. He's right in the middle of Simon there.
Well, it all looks like they're falling over each other as they come into Graham Hill Bend. Very, very slippery, as you can see. And just in front of Chataway was a 49 car of Steve Wenzel. Really neat move there. Different drivers taking different approaches, and the great thing about this championship, Rob, is you have such a mixture of experienced guys like Paul Quinn and some people who've basically done track days and are just going out there and racing for the hell of it and for fun.
Yeah, these Class A cars, you can see lots of them running with number plates on. They're just standard road registered cars, but like you say, big variation in driver skill level. But Paul Quinn making a great start, and BJ Chung already dropping back into the clutches of the cars behind him.
Yeah, Jewel now under pressure, and you can see the number 9 car of Roberts already starting to make some progress as they charge their way up to Druid. Stuart Kirkbride round the outside, trying to find a way around Hans Baumhart, but very, very difficult to do. There's some contact in front, Rob.
Ooh, they don't get much closer than that, and Martin Roberts really a man on the move now.
Well, yeah, as they come down, it looks like the 14 car of Baumhart just about has enough momentum to get that job done, and whether he's managed to edge away, I think he might have done, but in the background you can see the racing goes on throughout the whole pack, and the 11 car of Russ Treasure, that was the silver and orange car, he's making some progress as well. Kirkbride going in fairly deep. Really difficult corner here at Clearways, Rob, isn't it? What's the trick here?
It is. You've got to really turn in progressively, and also bear in mind the conditions, Simon. Line is one thing, but as you can see, there's moisture on the circuit as well, so very, very slippery offline, and a variety of lines being used to defend up into Paddock Hill Bend, where the cars are approaching now.
But it is Jewel that's having to defend now. Roberts really is on a bit of a mission here. It looks like there's a slower car just where you didn't really want it. Kirkbride is looking to see if he can make a way around the outside. He's putting pressure on the number 11 car of Russ Treasure. And you can do that around the outside there, Rob, can't you?
You can run a longer radius but keep the speed higher and go right round the outside. It's one of the very few corners in the UK where you can overtake around the outside, and lots of drivers looking to capitalise upon that opportunity now.
Well, as we said, the scraps go on all the way through. Adam Hamilton, Fletch, Damien Murray, Stuart Rush and Joan Haddon all falling all over each other. Paul Patterson having a little bit of a problem on a downshift there, but still managed to get a little bit of momentum on the way out, and just I think has got past Steve Owen. We saw a slow-moving car there on the left. Can't quite see the number. Is that the 69 car? I think that might be Paul Harding. Yes, it is. Paul Harding going very slow.
It is. So that was one of our front runners. He's pulled away, but if you look at the lead that Quinn has got now, it's huge. He's really putting the hammer down at the front of the field there.
Well, as we said, the guys like Quinn who've done things like Formula 3s, raced in America in the Barbasol Senior Series, and all kinds of different forms of racing. He's decided to go racing for fun and go out and drive a car which really rewards driver skill. And we know all about the Lotus Elise. Just about every report you read about this car in terms of driver involvement says to you this is what you want to drive if you want to have a car that's all about pure fun. And just about every driver out there is looking to find a way of just getting a little bit of an advantage in this such close racing all the way down. The 25 car there of Tess Howell under pressure from Ian Berry looking there. Different people taking different approaches, and there you can also see that as the pack starts to unfold, Rob, you can start to see that you've always got a race somewhere here, haven't you?
Absolutely, and one race that's just going to come into view is the race for the second position. We can see that BJ has been now caught by cars 9 and 14. That's Martin Roberts and Hans Baumgart, who've been absolutely hammer and tongs, mate, for the last few laps, and they've reeled in our second place position as they come up to Druids. Is he looking to the inside?
Well, it's going to be doable, isn't it? I think Roberts has just about got momentum, and I wonder if that's going to open the door then for the 14 car of Baumgart to maybe take advantage as well. It looks like BJ Chung, less experienced than some of the drivers around him, is thinking really more about his mirrors and going forward at this stage. And as you see, the rest of the grid are starting to fall over each other as they go into the latter part of the race. Stuart Moult there in the 44 running a little bit wide. Looked like he outbraked himself, Rob.
Oh, he did. You can see the brake lights on for too long, and he ran right around the outside of Paddock Hill Bend to avoid the gravel, and that's let car 13 up the inside, and he's nailed him on the way into Druids. Great move there.
Yeah, Matthew Bartlett really seeing the opportunity there, making the best of it. There's a good example. One of the things with Brands and somebody else, I think, just nearly down the inside there. The number 39 car, obviously, looking like he was trying to take advantage. That's Simon Deacon, but couldn't quite get enough of a run down the inside. And what happens is that these guys are basically having to defend and attack at once. BJ Chung, you can see, is really now more worried about Hans Baumgart than he is trying to get back at Martin Roberts.
Hans Baumgart putting him under a lot of pressure as well on the run into Druids. Those two cars nose to tail, and I wouldn't be surprised to see BJ Chung fall back another position soon, Si.
But it does look likely that he seems to just lost a little bit of pace in terms of the race. Oh, a downshift, very a crunch on a downshift there, Rob. That's not the ideal way, is it?
It's not, no. A little bit more heel and toe there might have been good, but you can see Tom Chataway on the rev limiter there on the run up to Druids, looking to the inside. No way through this lap, though.
No, not going to be doable, but you can see that the drivers here are having to work very, very hard on just get a very neat exit out of somewhere like Paddock Hill Bend. It's so important to get a nice, clean drive all the way up to Druids. Druids, again, one of the most important corners. Rob, you're a professional race driver. Tell us the trick.
Well, you just never get a rest around the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit, as you know. It's always corner, 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 and these guys working so hard, as you say, to defend as well as attack at the same time. And Tom Chataway now better exit out of Paddock Hill Bend. He's got good drive up the inside, but oh, it looks slippery up into there.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? And it does look like he's just about got it done there, and it neatly eventually gets past Marcus Jewell, who's lost a little bit of momentum there, but a real last of the late breakers move there. The number 17 car, absolutely superb, as Ian White really showed us how bravery can pay off at Paddock Hill Bend.
Mega, extremely late on the brakes. Oh, that's car 80.
Yeah, Stuart Mason. Well, clearly that's not the ideal line. Obviously, called our front runners out there. They weren't expecting to see something like that. Focuses the attention, no less. But Quinn is very gently being reeled in. I think the pace of Roberts and Baumgart are sort of edging them towards. You can see there again. BJ Chung, is he going to get done around the outside there, Rob?
That's Stuart Kirkbride going right around the outside. Oh, and a little dab of the brakes lights there. So no, he hasn't made it through. But Roberts and Baumgart are really putting the hammer down now. Now they've got past BJ Chung and really reeling in Paul Quinn. Maybe he's controlling it though from the front. He does have a reasonable lead now.
Yeah, it looks like he's very, very relaxed. He knows the circuit so well here. And again, the scratches continue all the way through the pack. Well, they're absolutely falling all over each other. Now the 97 car of Andy Dolan, that's the white car. He's getting a little bit barged out. He's getting literally barged out, Rob.
Oh, and it's slippy on the grass. Oh, he was lucky that that patch of green tarmac was there. That just got him enough grip to regain control. But Paul Quinn now coming through clearways. Looks like he's got it well under control.
It is, I think, going to be Paul Quinn who's going to come across the line to take an absolutely superb victory. Never under threat. Drove away from the start. Paul Quinn wins at Brands Hatch and really has marked himself out as a man to watch as the season unfolds. So on his slowing down lap, Paul Quinn just gently letting the car cool down. He's enjoyed himself and he's come away with a brilliant win. In second was Martin Roberts, just from Hans Baumhart, from BJ Chong, Stuart Kirkbride, Gary Broad, Tom Chataway, Paul Patterson, Marcus Jewell, and rounding out the top 10, Ian Berry. So Quinn will go home a very happy man from Brands Hatch. He gets the honour, of course, of going round on the winner's car as well. Alongside him is Martin Roberts and Alan Hyde. But Gemma has caught up with our winner down in the pit lane.
Paul, well done, first race.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Did you enjoy the race?
Well, it got a little bit boring halfway through, and I don't know what hell happened to the rest of the runners, but I looked in my mirrors and there was no one there, and I sort of fell asleep, to be honest.
Martin Roberts, well done, a very respectable second.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I really enjoyed the race. A good tussle with Hans all the way through, and yes, very enjoyable. Practically perfect conditions, really. Fine.
What a great start to the season, with some really close and exciting racing, and Paul Quinn taking a great podium finish. Don't go anywhere. Coming up after the break, it's the faster cars. It's classes B and C.
Well, the new for this for the 2008 series is the Lotus 211, as you see here. It's bolstered the grid, and Lotus Sport have now come out with it. 252 horsepower, 0 to 60, 3.8 seconds. Incredibly fast road track car. The 211 is incredibly quick straight from the box. As you can see, it's on pole position. We've got a variable traction control system fitted to the car, also a launch control system which gets the car off the line extremely quickly.
Well, let's just see how fast that car does get off the line. That's Martin Donnelly, former Grand Prix driver, starting from pole position from Walsh, Randall Williams, Kay Kirby, Hell, Clark and Cummings rounds out the top 10. Sean Becknell, Chris Pearson, Ben Pitch, David Harvey, Hans Baumhart, who racing for him this weekend, as has Russ Treasure, Martin Johnson, Dolan, Alexander. And as we go down the rest of the grid, there's some other drivers that have been racing in both categories this weekend, including Joanna Hollynock, who's going to be starting from row 15 in her Elise S111S. Right at the back, Chris Becknell. Now, we watch the cars come to line. Gavin Kirby, one of the 211Rs. Sean Bicknell in the middle of the grid there. You see the yellow and black crosses mean that we've got some novices, some new drivers out there. Are they going to trouble the front runners? Well, let's see what happens off the line here at Brands Hatch. It's cold, it's chilly, but it's a great start from the two guys on the front row. I think it's going to be Walsh as they come through this contact right at the very start there. And then looks like the number 40 car has been turned around. Nick Kay has ended up, oh my goodness, he's ended up, how has he missed that? Rob Bath, sports car driver extraordinaire, you join me. Oh, that's a scary moment.
Yeah, I'm sat here with my bottom jaw wide open. That was an amazing start, and how that car hasn't been collected is unbelievable. But car 6 there of Walsh cleanly away, made his getaway around the outside of Paddock Hill, and he's away. Martin Donnelly, good start. Remember, he's a Class B runner, so hasn't quite got the performance of the Class C cars, but yeah, mega start.
Right, here we ride on board with Gavin Kirby. He looks like, despite running a little bit wide, he's got a bit of momentum there on Martin Donnelly. Is he going to be getting it done? No! Donnelly uses all of his experience and turns in across the front of him into Surtees, but it is the 6 car of Walsh. He's just got his head down and just starting to edge away. Very, very important in the early stages of these kind of races, Robert, just to drive a neat couple of first laps.
Yeah, it certainly is. These Lotuses will be lively at the best of times. Remember, these two classes of car have a lot more power than the A-class production cars we saw earlier. And Donnelly's so smooth. You can see the class of the driver. He's a phenomenal guy to watch.
Well, of course, Martin Donnelly, former Lotus Grand Prix driver back in 1990. Really, really top-line driver, winning in Formula 3000 and Formula 3, as well as we see some drivers who probably can only aspire to that sort of level at this stage. The number 55 car coming through the shot there, which is looking pretty steady, was Chris Headlam. Now, is that Walsh with a problem, Rob?
Yes, he's got his indicator on there, Simon. He's slowing and looks like he's heading into pit lane. Yes, he is.
Well, that's a real shame. He had such a great start, but it's really handed the initiative to Chris Randall as the spectators enjoying the racing, if not the weather, Rob.
Well, the sun's coming out. What do they want? But looking at those two Lotus 211Rs going into the hairpin there at Druids, fantastic looking new cars, but they were struggling to cope with the MTG ahead of them.
Well, it really is a very well-developed car. Chris Randall's worked very hard on making that car work as well as it clearly is at the moment as they come charging into Druids once again. Side-by-side action all the way. Matt Cummins in 16, David Alexander in 20s. You hear Sean Bicknell whistling his way down to Graham Hill Bend. It sounds fantastic.
Fantastic indeed, Simon. These supercharged engines producing over 200 horsepower. You can see the cars diving around and looking for grip around this cold, slippery Brands Hatch.
Well, coming out of clearways though, it's Chris Pearson and Anthony Clark that are side by side. The very distinctive shape of the Lotus Sport Elise made an absolute wow when they raced as a one-make series back at the turn of the century in 2000-2001. Really was some fantastic racing, and these two guys are clearly enjoying the action here as the 77 car just drives to the inside of 67. Andrew Kell. Looks like he just about managed to get that done. Very, very difficult into Graham Hill Bend on these sort of conditions. You can't really get enough of a run. Kell seems to have lost an awful lot of ground there, Rob.
Yeah, he's dropping back a little bit, and we're looking at an eclectic mix now between a Lotus 211R and a 340R. Two very distinctive, different-looking cars coming up to Druids, and very close there.
Well, that nearly was going to be exciting as it almost ended up getting turned around. But Bicknell clearly has a major problem. Well, we saw him in amongst the mix a little bit earlier on, but it sounds fairly terminal, whatever that may be. He's clearly bringing the car back in. Great disappointment for Sean. So we're going to return to see what's happening at the front with one of those 211Rs. Really are fantastic things to look at. Just about the ultimate track day car. Of course, Lotus on track. The race series has come out of the fact that it's been such a popular activity doing track days in these cars. They're just absolutely perfect for this sort of driving.
Yes, they are, Simon. Remember, this championship started 1 year ago with a full grid of cars. And that's car 48 going off as he comes out of Graham Hill Bend, just making light contact with the barriers there. Unlucky.
Yeah, Guy Truss. Well, he was the driver that was involved in that melee at the start. There was nothing to do, and he was the one who somehow managed to stop and avoid the 40 car of Nick Kay. So he's had a fairly, shall we say, exciting day. I think that's the best summary of that one. But it is the scrap at the front. Steve Williams in the number 18 car really starting to put a lot more pressure on the 95 car of Kirby as the battles rage all the way down, and 29 Craig Denman. Exciting run, but this man at the front, he hasn't really got an awful lot to worry about except just keeping it neat and tidy, going back to that scrap between Denman and that's John Townsend he's fighting with. He's a little bit deep. They're very, very easy to make a mistake going through. It's probably one of the most difficult corners anywhere in British motorsport.
It is. Time-wise, you've got a lot to lose, and if you run wide as he did, and you can see that's cost him on the run up to Paddock Hill. He's left the door wide open and just squeezes through, so loses the place. Yes.
Oh yeah, Denman really very gentlemanly about the whole thing. Didn't put too much of a fight up with these two guys. Mark Gooday in the 42 car in that fantastic looking 340R, and Martin Johnson in the 211R. Interesting how two cars that are very, very different in terms of their outright performance, but seem to be having a similar sort of lap time. Martin Donnelly, we talked a little bit about him a bit earlier on. The class of the man is obvious to see. He's lapping hands down hard in the 14 car, has been racing already this weekend. It looks and sounds so balanced.
It does. Kirby's really got his mirrors full of Steve Williams. I can see him up alongside there. There's the front of the yellow Elise. Very, very close. Great on-board shots here of Gavin Kirby, desperately trying to defend his position.
Just, I think, managed to edge. But he was having a look across the mirror there. It's pretty telling, really, wasn't it? Well, looks like Williams maybe had a bit of problem getting some traction. It's very easy on a day like today just to put a wheel onto the curb somewhere like Graham Hill Bend. You use a lot of curb on the exit, Rob, don't you?
You do, and you've already seen how slippery the grass is. The big crowd enjoying today's racing now, and racing all the way back down the field as we look at the battle led just behind Steve Williams.
Gary Broad there, one of the Class A runners in the blue. There's a bit of smoke coming from the back of, I think that's Chris Pearson's car. It certainly looked like it. Williams is coming through and has really got the car working very, very well in the latter part of the race, although he did lose a little bit of ground earlier on. As we saw, he was getting into that scrap with Kirby. But Pearson comes down the inside of some of the back markers, nearly gets his nose chopped off by Rob there. Pretty close up. It's one of the dramas you have when you're racing in different classes, Rob.
You do got to be careful of the back markers, and that's exactly what Chris Randall, our race leader, is doing. He's really picking his way through, and he's up to about 15 seconds now, Simon, on that last lap.
Well, he doesn't seem to have any problems with the car. It's a very, very well thought through car. As you can see, it's the Sport Elise design, but with some fairly hefty modifications. Gavin Kirby slices past the back markers, but he's still under pressure from Williams. I think he was compromised.
He is. Williams really keeping him honest. He's pushing very hard, and as they come up to Druids, you can see that he's defending the inside, and all Williams jigs back to the outside. He's having a look around the outside, Simon.
Well, the problem is it's still very, very slippery here at Brands Hatch, and if you get a bit too wide, well, that's what can happen. He's got onto the outside. He's on the grass. Is he going to stop him? No. What a disaster, Rob.
Nuts, just ran out of road on the outside there, and got onto the wet grasscrete and made light contact with the conveyor belt there, and it keeps all the tyres together. So very unlucky there. Good plucky move from Steve Williams. Give him a point for trying.
Well, certainly spectacular, wasn't it? But the scrap between Mark Gooday and Martin Johnson has continued on, but it does look like Williams has obviously picked up some damage. Probably something like steering damage.
Probably steering suspension. Unlucky enough for Williams.
Well, it does look like now our leader is about to embark on the Le Mans 20,000 amount of lighting. Well, there you've done Le Mans. You need all that lighting.
He's enjoying himself. Looking at the onboards of Donnelly there, you can see the sweeps and turns of Brands Hatch, and as the sun sets, Chris Randall's put his lights on. It makes him feel good.
But the man who's done the job this weekend, the man who's really dominated this race, as soon as Walsh was out, it was all about Chris Randall. He's going to cross the line to take a very, very well-earned, very well-driven drive to take himself a brilliant win here at Brands Hatch. The disco lights going on. Well, maybe there's going to be a party tonight. Certainly he's earned it, that's for sure. It's going to be Martin Donnelly, the former Grand Prix driver, man synonymous with the Lotus name, who's going to take a class victory. And that car really is something to watch for the future. Chris Randall wins from Martin Donnelly. Gavin Kirby, Chris Pearson, Anthony Clark, Andrew Kell, Harvey, Kay, Pitch and Chris Headlam rounds out the top 10. And in the class, it was Randall, Kell and Kay for Class C. And then in Class B, Martin Donnelly, Gavin Kirby and Chris Pearson takes third.
Gavin, how did you enjoy your race?
Yes, brilliant race. Got a pretty good start. I can't really remember up with the Druids and got past Steve Williams, and the rest of the race I was just fending Steve off, but I think he spun coming out of Druid's hairpin and left me just to romp home with third. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased. New car, and it seems to be working well, so take it forward for the rest of the year now.
Martin, well done to you. Did you enjoy that?
I always enjoy a race, but unfortunately I made a new boy mistake in Mr. Gear of the Druids, which led Chris through, and I think after that it was history.
Randy, 16-second lead I think you had. Well done.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's good. Win's a win. I feel a bit rusty though. I'm not really happy with the way I was driving. Probably lucky that Walshy expired early doors, but it's a win, so I'm happy.
Well, that's it today here at Brands. We hope you've enjoyed that racing, and we'll see you next time from Donington. Hello and welcome to Donington Park for round 2 of the Lotus on Track Elise Trophy. First up, it's Class A. It's a handicap race whereby all but the first 4 cars to start are given a credit lap. Here's Simon Hill to explain those grids.
Thanks very much, Gemma. As you can see, it is a packed grid, as ever with Lotus on Track. All Class A cars are all running to a similar specification, but there's different levels of experience. Guys like Paul Quinn, who dominated at Brands Hatch. He's one of the group of 5 drivers who will set off from the start. They have to go round and make up a complete lap on this next group of drivers, headed by Adam Hamilton Fletcher. They start 25 seconds behind that group. 45 seconds, 60 seconds and 75 seconds, moving all the way through to the last pack, headed by Andy Dolan, starting 105 seconds behind that leading group that we talked about a moment ago. So what that means is the front group have to make their way all the way round and take the lead by getting ahead of the group that started 25 seconds behind the leaders. So it should be very interesting. There should be plenty of overtaking throughout the pack. I'm joined by Rob Bath. Rob, it's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Certainly will, Si. There'll be loads and loads of overtaking on the full Grand Prix circuit here at Donington. Plenty of opportunity, so looking down at the start now.
So as you'll see, the first few drivers get away. A nice, neat start with the Union flag starting. Good old school stuff. Well, what else would you expect from Lotus? Probably the best known of all British manufacturers. And it's a nice, neat getaway by the 69 car of Paul Harding. It looks strong at Brands Hatch, had some dramas. The yellow car's the one to watch, though. Paul Quinn, a man with a lot of experience, and he's on the move already, Rob.
Yes, Paul Quinn safely into second at the top of the Craner curves. He's pushing hard, he dominated at Brands, you say. He's down the inside at the old hairpin, and he's taken the lead, Simon.
Yeah, great move, very deep inside of it. In the background is some clatter of gravel, and I think that's Hans Baumhart. It is the 14 car. Well, that's a bit of a drama. He's got a lot of work to do now to try and get firstly off the grass, but then get himself back into contention. Now, this is the first of the group that's starting 45 seconds behind the leading pack, headed by the 47 car of Paul Patterson, and now the 62nd behind group. And that strap that's going on there is the 25 car of Tess Howell. She's got a nice neat move down the inside, looked pretty strong there.
So car number 9, Martin Roberts, he heads the 75-second pack, Simon, off the line. They'll be making their way around down into the Craners and down into the old hairpin. We now see two cars running very close together, 39 and 41.
Looking very, very difficult to make that car stick sometimes. Not sure whether that driver on the outside is actually going to turn in on you. And this is the last of the groups getting away, the 105-second pack. Now they will have the leaders that we saw set off initially as we ride on board to with Stuart Mason rather, into the corner. You can see in the background that's the leaders coming through. Doesn't look like it's going to be long, Rob, before they're on top of them.
No, absolutely. The leaders looking at this big pack, that final group to set off, easily the largest of the packs setting off, and the leaders will be right on them as we ride on board now with James Knight as he comes down through the Craners and into the old hairpin.
Yeah, looks like he's got that one done. You can see the 31 car just jinking out of his way there. Rob Shipley obviously didn't see that one coming. And this is a really, really difficult section of the circuit, Rob. Talk us through the final part of the lap. I think for a lot of drivers, it's probably one of the most challenging parts of racetrack anywhere in the UK.
It certainly is. At slow corners, the drivers finding it quite difficult to get the line right, both entry speed and exit speed. And going back to turn 1, that's 39.41. They're still at it, Simon.
Yeah, Stuart Kirkbride and Simon Deek racing hard. Great thing about the Lotus On Track series, you can always find a race somewhere in the pack. The idea behind this system is to make sure you don't get a situation where guys like Paul Quinn, who are much more experienced than Paul Rand, these sort of guys don't just disappear away into the distance. We see them having to really, really fight hard. And it's the 15 car now of Paul Quinn chasing down the 99 car of James Knight. James Knight now turning into the first part of the chicane. Quinn is through. Trick here, of course, Rob, to make sure you can get that done, but not lose too much speed on the exit.
Paul Quinn dispatched him nicely at the S's there, and they'll be coming down into this section. It's a very, very tight hairpin here. Easy to come into it too quick, and they will sacrifice exit speed on board with James Knight through that. Oh, and Paul Quinn, he ran wide on the exit, Simon. He's on the grass.
Well, that's not the sort of thing you'd expect to find, rather, from Paul Quinn. A yellow flag being waved. I wondered if that was a separate incident. Couldn't quite see the beginning of that. We see now from the outside of James Knight's car, taking a slightly tighter line on the exit of Coppice there, Rob. It's a little bit unusual.
Yes, maybe looking to maximise the grip on the inside there, but cars normally taking the line of least resistance on the outside. Getting back to turn 1, this is car number 5, that's Ken Savage.
Yeah, a bit under pressure, or putting pressure rather on Andy Dolan. That looks like that back is going to run and run. Difficult there through the first part of the Craners. Really, really struggling to get the car turned in. The 97 car of Andy Dolan didn't seem to want to get the car to turn. Usually with these Elises, that's the one thing that you can count on, isn't it?
Absolutely. The Elise is a very, very nimble car. Oh, and that's Paul Quinn. He's in the gravel at the old hairpin. That's a huge gravel trap, but he's kept it running. That Elise, that's got mighty 4x4 capabilities for a little sports car.
Well, not the usual kind of off-roading we'd expect to find from a driver of Paul's experience, but nevertheless he managed to keep it going. Stuart Malt there in the silver car, making his way through the pack, and this is where it's starting to overlap now. You're starting to see cars that are basically the same, pretty much identical in terms of performance. These are all Class A cars, as we said at the beginning. They're all starting to now fall over each other as the relative levels of experience start to catch up with each other. Of course, there's a lot of drivers in this race here, Rob, that have just really done some track day activity before this.
They certainly have, and those drivers clearly identified by a yellow cross with a yellow background with a black cross on, and that means obviously they've got very limited race experience as to ride on board now with James might cut down in the smoke on the second.
Where the drivers have been, a few drivers have been rally crossing there. We saw Paul Quinn giving us a great demonstration there. There's a bit of gravel on the circuit as they turn into the hairpin. Looking like a possible late lunge there from Ken Savage. Well, he might have a Savage name, but it was a very gentlemanly piece of driving by him there. But Nigel is watching these two. This is the section I think so tricky here. Goddard, you took us through it from a driver's perspective, Rob.
Unfortunately, we just cut away there, but yeah, James Knight having a great view of the battle ahead of him, and Goddard is a very, very tricky left-hander that leads back onto the start-finish line, so as you say.
Adam Hamilton Fletcher, get the words out if I can. It was the 73 car. He was the first of the drivers with the 25-second delay behind the leaders. He was the guy in the black car that we saw coming through. Already we've seen a lot of action throughout the pack. Martin Rumble looking like he's starting to make some progress there, and Paul Quinn now back on track. Behind him, the 80 car of Stuart Mason just edged away a little bit from Rob Shipley. Now look at the scrap here. Is Quinn going to be able to make his way through? Is that Quinn? No, in fact it's the 5 car of Ken Savage that we saw earlier on, Rob.
Yes, Ken Savage, he's taking it nice and steady, trying to keep out of trouble by the look of it. He's just playing a waiting game, Simon, not pushing too hard, letting things come to him. But as you say, the longer this race goes on, the more the handicaps are working out.
A nice neat job coming through the craner curves there, heading down to the chicane as we're getting into the latter part of the race, starting to overlap between different starting points. James Knight down the inside, sounds like he's just locked the rears up. Can't quite get the car stopped, contact! Well, it was looking promising up to the point that other car turned in. What have we got going on here, Rob?
That's Stuart Kirkbride, Simon. He's really on a march now. He's scything up through some of the slower cars. Neat move, just like a computer game there on the start-finish straight.
I think he made about 4 places in one hit. That's about the most impressive overtaking manoeuvre I think we've seen so far in this race. As we make the way down to Craner curves once again, this absolutely fantastic scrap in the middle of the pack starts to unfold. With only now, I think, perhaps a couple of laps to go. 44 car of Stuart Moore, just slightly ahead of the rest of these guys. Now it looks like the 8 car here of Graham Walsh has worked his way up to the lead.
Yes, that's our race leader, Simon. So 8 leads in the latter half. Side by side through the Starkey's kink there on the run up the hill.
Yeah, Ken Savage ahead once again in the 5 car. The lights are on there from one of the other guys in the middle of the pack as we now look towards what I think is a recovering Hans Baumgart after his little spin early on. Didn't seem to pick up any damage. And 31 of Rob Shipley we've seen already this afternoon, one of the less experienced guys. Now, this looks like it's Kirkbride getting himself up into 2nd place. That was a neat and tidy job.
It was very neat and tidy. I thought David Willey might have made it slightly harder for him by covering the inside, but no. Neatly grew up into 2nd. Riding on board now with Stuart Mason, skipping through some of that gravel laid down at the S's. You can hear it rattling up on the inside of the wheel arches. Oh, that's somebody off at the hairpin, Simon. Who's that?
That's Rush Treasure. Well, it looked like just maybe too much speed in. Obviously, with a rear-wheel drive car, you can easily get on the power too early and lose the back end of that. Fairly inexperienced, not done an awful lot of racing. Oh, but even though he's fairly inexperienced, he didn't end up doing that. It was Simon Deacon really making a mess of that one, Rob.
Oh, whether Simon was a little bit offsided, I don't know, but this is Stuart Kirkbride coming through now on the final lap.
And he's done a fantastic job. He's worked his way through and has taken a much-deserved victory here at Donington Park. Fantastic stuff for Stuart Kirkbride. Works his way forwards and he's going to go home a very, very happy man. So Kirkbride wins by just over 7 seconds from Graham Walsh. Great result for David Willey in 3rd position. Paul Patterson, Adam Hamilton Fletcher taking 5th, Tess Howell, Stuart Walt, Simon Deacon, Martin Roberts. Rounding out the top 10 was Damien Murray.
David Willey, your first race. Well done to you, 3rd place.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock, really. Obviously, with a handicap, you never know where you are. And to see the checkered flag was quite a relief because I had a lot more faster cars behind me, and I tried to hold them up as best I can. Luckily, I think Paul was trying to get me at the Melbourne hairpin, but he sort of span a bit, and I luckily got him on the inside. So, yeah, a fantastic day, really.
You said you had problems yesterday, but you seem to have driven a blinding race today.
I think it was the driver yesterday, and obviously the conditions I blame. And the car was playing up a bit. So today, dry weather, I thought I'll change the car a bit. And I knew I was leading after the start, and I just went for it. And it paid off.
Yeah, this is my first full season I'm doing, really. So last year I was just learning, and this year I'm trying to do better, really. But I've been very lucky with a handicap today, really, because I started in the middle of the grid, which helped me a lot. So, And I just thought, well, whatever car I catch up with, I'll just try and pass straight away. This is my only hope, really. And I just have no idea where you are actually in the race. Just try and find, catch a car, overtake it, and then just carry on doing that really until the time runs out. So, but I was lucky enough to actually win for once.
Well, there you have a fantastic first race there, the handicap from Class A. Coming up after the break, it's Classes B and C. Hello and welcome to our 1 hour special show of the Lotus on Track Elise Trophy. We're here at Brands Hatch for a very prestigious weekend supporting the A1 GP. Well, this is one of the biggest events of the year here at Brands Hatch, and the Lotus on Track Elise Trophy have been chosen as one of the support races.
It's amazing to think that just 2 years ago the series didn't exist. Just over a year ago we started at Brands Hatch with a full grid of 32 cars. A year later we've got 44 cars on the GP circuit supporting the second biggest race meet in the UK. It's been fantastic.
And you're straight out after A1, so you're going to have some pretty big crowds as well.
We're hoping that a few of the crowds are going to hang around and watch us race. Fingers crossed.
Today the Lotus drivers have a rare opportunity to race on the Grand Prix circuit here at Brands. To take us through one of those laps, it's GT driver Rob Barth.
Coming across the start-finish line to start our lap of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit into turn 1 at Paddock Hill Bend. Paddock Hill Bend, fast right-hand curve. The TV does the gradient no justice whatsoever, steeply downhill upon the exit. Up into turn 2, steeply uphill this time into the Druids hairpin. Turning in early to maximise our use of the grip available on the inside and a late clipping point. Turn 3 is Graham Hill Bend. Relatively fast, tricky left-hand curve, falls away on the exit. And then turn 4 is called Surtees, an uphill left-hand curve that leads onto the back straight here at Brands Hatch. Coming to Surtees now. Bringing the car in towards that late clipping point. Traction always difficult upon the exit. And then once again the gradient falls away on the exit, steeply downhill down the back straight, and then into the two of the fastest right-handers you'll ever come across. The first is Hawthorne, taking off the minimal amount of speed. The second is Westfield, slightly slower than Hawthorne, but still nonetheless a real challenge. Out of Hawthorne's, the next corners we come to are Sheen curve and then Stirling. Sheen used to be Dingledale chicane, it's now a blind right-hander as you can see. And then into Stirling's, a banked 90-degree left-hand corner, fabulous coming down through the trees here. And then a relatively short straight before we arrive at Clearways. Clearways on the Grand Prix circuit here at Brands Hatch, a very, very fast right-hand curve with a slight crest in the centre. Accurately through here in towards the inside, and again looking for early power to carry as much speed as we can through the final little kink and across the start-finish line.
44 cars are entered into race 1, and as they head out to the track now, let's take a look at the grid.
Thanks, Gemma. It's Chris Randall on pole position. He's been the dominant driver in the Lotus on Track Elise Trophy, and he lines up with Andrew Kell alongside him at the front of the grid. Gavin Kirby moving up from Class A to Class B this year is third on the grid ahead of David Skeggs, but all the way through this full field there are drivers to watch, like Paul Quinn, for example, always a front runner in Class A. He starts 13th on the grid. Martin Roberts went well here at the start of the season on the Indy circuit, and then further down the order, Paul Harding, number 69, another quick driver in Class A, and Russ Treasure lines up 30th on the grid with his Class A car this weekend. Now much further down you've got Chris Pearson. He will start 38th. We know that he has been a potential front runner in the past, indeed a winner last year of one of the handicap races. And then starting right at the very back is Sean Bicknell, who had an engine problem in qualifying. He qualified out of session and he's going to be starting then 43rd on this capacity grid. On board with Andrew Walsh, the winner of the very first Lotus On Track Elise Trophy here on the Indy circuit last year. Gavin Kirby lining up alongside in them. are about to go racing. As the lights go out, away they go. Slow start made by Gavin Kirby, but a good start made by Chris Randall, and Andrew Kell a bit sluggish away as well. That means that David Skeggs has gone round the outside of him, and so as they head towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time, it's Chris Randall in the lead. Everybody else funneling through. Are they all going to survive the right-hander? Yes, so far so good. Up towards the Hampton at Druids. You've got David Skeggs then going up into second place after a good start. Andrew Kell third, and one in the gravel already. That, I'm afraid, is Chris Headlam. The former kart racer, new to car racing this year, is off at just turn 2. So Chris Randall leads, Skeggs is second, Kell third, the recovering Gavin Kirby is fourth as they come out of Graham Hill Bend and along Cooper Straight for the first time. Now is the fabulous Grand Prix circuit in use this weekend. That's going to be a real test of many of them as the cars will funnel their way into the left-hander and now make their way out onto the Grand Prix part of the circuit. Steve Williams, number 18, coming under pressure. Paul Quinn goes through, the rest of the field all file through. It's great to see 44 cars here, plus reserves indeed this weekend, as now up on the inside for second place goes Andrew Kell. He's gone through on the inside of Skeggs, and this is Gavin Kirby's view. His fourth as he comes now through Hawthorns. Along the short straight up towards Westfield, Kirby makes a move on the inside there. He's going to go through to third. Is he the expense of David Skeggs? The two absolutely side by side, but David Skeggs just hangs on to the place there. Right in his wheel tracks now is Gavin Kirby, and this little battle means that the race leaders are pulling away. Gavin Kirby for the moment stuck there behind David Skeggs, and then in fifth place you've got Andrew Walsh. They turn their way now to the left of Sterling's and drop down towards Clark Curve. On board with Walsh now. Under the bridge, into Clark Curve. Chris Randall leading then. Andrew Kell second. In third, you've got David Skeggs, and the rest of the field will file through. Chris Randall's advantage at the end of lap 1, though, is a massive one. It's a 20-minute race, and the rest of them are going to be lucky, I think, to see him again before the podium. Across the line they go. Andrew Walsh there having to defend at the moment because he's got Mark Gooday tucked up behind him through Paddock Hill Bend. There you can see Gavin Kirby now. You're on board with him right on the tail of David Skeggs, but there's a yellow flag ahead as they go up towards Druids. That's because of Chris Headlam's car. Well, there's a change of place anyway because Gavin Kirby goes through on the inside. Not necessarily sure that's going to be the ideal way of achieving that position. The race director may have raised eyebrows about that, but David Skeggs certainly has lost his place, and now look, he's under pressure as well because Andrew Walsh is right on his tail. Andrew Walsh, the Welshman, the high-performance driving instructor, right on the tail of Skeggs now as they go to the left at Surtees. Remember that Chris Randall leads, that man Andrew Kell second, third then Gavin Kirby, and the fight's on for fourth and fifth. David Skeggs just at the moment being able to keep Andrew Walsh at bay. Sixth is Mark Gooday, and then the rest of the field power down towards the right at Hawthorns. There's Chris Randall. He knows his way around this circuit very well. He's raced not only in GT cars, he's raced in Group C, historic Group C cars around here. And so Chris Randall knows the circuit well. Here's a replay of the start. Watch Gavin Kirby on the second row of the grid, because as the lights go out, he barely gets away properly at all. He does move off the grid, but he loses places to the left and to the right, and so he's got a bit of a climb up through the field again now. In fairness to him, by the time he got to Paddock, he'd retaliated. He was alongside Steve Williams' car, but Gavin Kirby, having qualified third, not making a good start at all. And Chris Headlam, new to car racing this year, arrives at Druids far too quickly, locks up, and just skates off into the gravel bed. That's the end of his race, very early on, I'm afraid, and the marshals are still there trying to extricate that car from the gravel trap, so the yellow flag is still being waved. But Gavin Kirby through on the inside then to move himself ahead of David Skeggs. There may be a bit of finger-wagging about all of that, but in the meantime, second, third and fourth running together now. Andrew Kell coming under pressure from Gavin Kirby, and then David Skeggs in fourth place. Now Gavin Kirby trying to attack and defend here at the same time, heading up towards the hairpin at Druids. Andrew Kell doing a very good job here, qualified well, remember, on the outside of the front row. And Gavin Kirby, one of the forces to be reckoned with last year in Class A, has moved up to Class B this year for the more powerful, more modified cars. With his 211, he's going great guns here. He's on the tail of Kell, but Chris Randall is the man that leads Class B. Unusually, this weekend, Chris Randall stepping down from Class C for the more powerful, more modified cars into Class B, but he's still dominating the race. Kell second, Kirby third, and Skeggs trying to fight back in fourth, and there's somebody off there. There's clouds of gravel and dust, and in the midst of it is Tony Verrier's car, and that is going no further. You can see he's gone a long, long way off at Paddock Hill Bend, and so Tony Verrier is out of the race, that's for sure. The only question mark now is as to whether the race can carry on whilst that car is moved out of harm's way, or do we need a safety car? There's the replay, big slide going into Paddock, the back comes round, off he goes into the gravel. Tony's okay, but his race is done, at least for today. There's another Lotus on-track Elise trophy here at Browns this weekend too, and number 9 is Martin Roberts, and he is in the gravel bed as well. A rather innocent expression in the open face helmet to say, oh, well, I don't know what happened. And the marshal says, come on, get out of the car. And here also you can see Martin Johnston in trouble, spinning at Hawthorns and being collected by Paul Quinn, the front-running driver in Class A, and both of those cars then off the circuit on the inside at Hawthorns. Martin Johnston getting a wheel onto the dirt, losing the car, and so both he and Quinn off the track. So the race carries on for the moment. At any rate, there's Andrew Kell in second place. In third, it's Gavin Kirby. You can see the snatch vehicle there to the left at Paddock Hill Bend, but we've now got quite a number of cars littering the circuit. It may be that the clerk of the course decides that it's time for a bit of a general sweep up here. Out of Druids, Kell to Kirby, nothing at all really, that gap now for second and third places. David Skeggs being dropped a bit in fourth, and then you've got Andrew Walsh fifth as they come downhill. The giant TV screen there relaying the action to a big crowd here at A1GP at Brands Hatch. And Andrew Kell, second, knows now that he has his work cut out to keep Gavin Kirby at bay. Kirby right on his tail, David Skeggs is there in fourth, and the safety car is on standby. Now, is that going to be deployed? Let's see, the leaders have gone through. The safety car remains at its position at the back of the pits. They're ready to join in on Cooper Straight. But as yet, it has not been sent out onto the circuit. So, one or two of the drivers seeing the yellow flags, they'll have perhaps seen that safety car on standby as well when they last went along Cooper Straight. Is that going to be deployed? If it is, of course, it will take away Chris Randall's lead, and this will throw a lifeline to Andrew Kell. Good little battles going on lower down the order then as the Class A cars turn their way up through the hairpin at Druids. Number 73, Adam Hamilton-Fletcher, keeping at bay Mark Peasy. Right, is the safety car about to make its way onto the track? It needs to find, of course, the blue car of Chris Randall. While the safety car boards are being prepared, the yellow flags are being waved, and so it looks as though we are going to have the race suspended. The safety car is on track then, and that means that everybody bunches up behind it, and all those gaps are suddenly eradicated. Number 19 there has made great progress. That's Sean Bittnell up from the back of the grid with his 1.8 litre turbocharged 20-valved engined Exceed Series 1. And Martin Roberts getting back into his car to help the marshals move that out of the gravel bed. The sweeping up to be done all around the circuit, but the action will continue here at Brands Hatch right after the break. Welcome back to Brands Hatch for the first of two races this weekend here for the Lotus On-Track Elise Trophy. The cars supporting A1GP's only British round, and there's an enormous crowd here to watch the action. We've had the safety car then because of an incident that put Martin Roberts in the gravel. Chris Randall leads Andrew Kell, but the gap between the two of them has come right down, and Chris Randall slows the field down. Coming out of Clark Kirby, he's going to be ready to sprint away this time. The green flag is being prepared. Randall, Kell, Gavin Kirby third, David Skeggs fourth, Andrew Walsh fifth, Mark Gooday sixth. We go racing again. There's the green flag. The car's back in business then. They're unleashed down towards Paddock Hill Bend. There's a black and orange mechanical warning flag going out for somebody. And as the cars turn their way through Paddock then, this is Randall's opportunity to build that lead once again. Kell trying to go with him in second place, but before the interruption, the gap was widening, and I suspect it's going to happen again here. Number 19 there going through, Sean Bittnell, having started 43rd on the grid, and he's not far away now from being into the top 10. It's been a great fight up through the field by Sean Bittnell, this in the Exceed with the Audi turbo engine in the car. It was an engine problem in qualifying that put him to the very back, but he's absolutely sidling his way through the traffic, and of course this safety car has helped him even further because it's bunched everybody up ahead of him. He doesn't have to do quite so much vigorous work now to catch the opposition. Another place about to be gained here on the inside. Look, going up towards Surtees. He moves through easily enough on the inside then. Goes ahead of Gary Broad. As off the track is Mark Peasy. Back on the track is Mark Peasy. Not a case of easy peasy, I'm afraid. He got the line wrong coming through Druids, but he's carrying on, and there's somebody else in trouble at the left-hander of Surtees. I think Paul Patterson was one of the drivers getting it wrong, and so too Simon Deacon. They've all survived, but in Class A for the road-going production-based cars, life is very fraught indeed. The majority of the drivers in the Lotus On-Track Elise Trophy have come from track day background. There's relatively little previous circuit racing experience, and that's why the racing is so good, because occasionally they make mistakes and it really does become very lively indeed. Here's a replay. You can see one or two drivers getting all heroic on the inside. A big lose for Paul Patterson, and that means that cars have to go off in avoidance. Just being able to avoid him then was Simon Deacon. And from every angle the moment is covered, and there, look, getting perilously close to the gravel, indeed just putting a couple of wheels into the gravel and back onto the circuit. There is 39 Simon Deacon back into the race now. But Chris Randall is sitting pretty up front. Andrew Kell second. In third place going through it remains Gavin Kirby, and the rest of the field, those that haven't had a moment, come through. Chris Pearson, I fear, could well be the one that's being shown that black and orange mechanical warning flag. Now let's try and work out why. There's nothing immediately apparent about it. Chris Pearson, another driver who's had to work his way up from near the back of the grid. He was 38th on the grid after problems in qualifying. He turns his way through the hairpin, and Chris Pearson is really pushing in the Motorsport Elise now. His next target as they come downhill. The Class A opposition is going to be dispensed with. Yes, it is indeed Chris Pearson. There you can see the board, and the black and orange mechanical warning flag means that within 3 laps he's going to have to be in the pit lane. Otherwise, he's going to incur the wrath of the clerk of the course. For the second time, Simon Deacon is in the wars. We saw him going off at Surtees a little while ago. Now he's had a spin at Paddock, but he gets going again, so the track is clear. The yellow flags can be withdrawn, and he's back in the race, climbing up towards Druids now. And this is what he did wrong. Comes into the corner, just runs a little bit too wide, loses the back of the car. Thankfully, everybody just able to avoid him. That was very close, though. Simon Deacon gets away unscathed, fires the engine up, carries on in the race, but Chris Pearson is not so lucky. He's had a spin at Surtees, and the car, by the look of it, is stranded on the road. Now, you're on board with Gavin Kirby, who is right on the tail of Andrew Kell, going in towards the left-hander at Stirling's. Gavin Kirby trying to stick his nose up on the inside there, but Andrew Kell is equal to the task, and Gavin Kirby looks across and sees in his mirrors that David Skeggs is still right on his tail. Going down towards Clark Curve then, 2nd, 3rd and 4th is where the battle is. It's Kell, Kirby and Skeggs up over the line, and in fact now that David Skeggs has latched onto the tail of Gavin Kirby, so that means that Kirby is defending, he's going a bit slower, and Andrew Kell is breaking away. I still don't think Andrew Kell is going to be able to do much about the leader, Chris Randall, though much the most experienced driver in the race, really. Andrew Kell, in only his 2nd season of car racing, is leading his class, and that's going to be important to him as well. A class win would be very sweet indeed here this weekend. Kirby 3rd then, David Skeggs 4th as they come through the hairpin and drop down once again towards the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. The safety car for the 2nd time in this race is being deployed. Out on track comes the safety car. The yellow flags are there, the boards are there. We don't have much time left within the 20 minutes. Now, Chris Pearson gets back on board the Motorsport Elise. You can see the recovery team is there ready to attach the tow rope and pull the car out of the way. Everybody else slowly making their way past, but all of these laps do count within the 20-minute duration. So frustrating for the likes of Gavin Kirby, denied an opportunity to try to put a move on Andrew Kell. Good news, though, this for Andrew Kell, because if we have very few racing laps left at the very end of the safety car period, it's less time for him to have to worry about defending. Indeed, he's probably one of the few people that wants the race to end under the safety car. Right, Chris Pearson's car should now be able to be moved off the circuit. Let's just see, you can see the ropes attached to it. Chris Pearson wriggles around in the cockpit, gets himself in equivalent of the passenger seat, puts the wiper on, and steers randomly as the car comes off the circuit. Right, so the track is now clear. We should be in business this time as soon as the clerk of the course is happy that that car is in a safer place. Very frustrating, though, that for Chris Pearson, one of the quicker drivers within Class B, and he had been doing a good job getting his way up the order. So he can hop out of the car, and in a moment or two then we ought to be back in business. That car running in Class B, the class in the championship, sponsored by Build Base. Each of the classes this year get a separate backer. Lamborghini sponsoring Class C and still sponsoring Class A, which is still numerically the strongest class. The lights are out on top of the safety car. That means that we're going to go back to racing this time, but I think we're only going to get about 1 lap in before the very end here. These 2 safety car periods have really eaten into the 20 minutes, so Chris Randall only has 1 more lap to go between him and the checkered flag. Andrew Kell, however, is going to have a rather physical last lap, I suspect, making sure that his car is wide enough to keep Gavin Kirby at bay, and Gavin Kirby has raced really well so far in this race. He's got David Skeggs behind him in 4th. The cars now then making their way down towards the right-handed Clark Curve. The safety car will peel into the pit lane, and then for one last time we're going to be back in business. Chris Randall again slows the pace a little bit as he comes through the corner. Picked up the pace now. Everybody else bunched up behind him. Andrew Kell doing his best to go with him, but we know that Andrew just hasn't quite got the pace of Randall's Class B car. The green flag is waved then. The last lap of the race underway. Down towards Paddock Hill Bend they go. Now, is anybody going to be able to make a move diving into the right-hander? The leading trio have managed to break away from the rest of the field, and Chris Randall is gone, look, already. Like a scalded cat away he is. He pulls clear then of Andrew Kell in 2nd place, and in 3rd it's Gavin Kirby. The real battle's on for 4th. David Skeggs has got Andrew Walsh right up behind him, and then in 6th place number 78 Ben Pitch. Now he's another driver new to the series this year who's going very well indeed, running really at the same sort of pace as those with a bit more experience. So Ben Pitch will be one to watch as the season develops. Out of Druids comes the Class A fight there. Tom Chataway is involved in it, so too is number 41 Stuart Kirkbride. Half a lap to go. Chris Randall then leading in second place. Still pursuing him is Andrew Kell, and that, I'm afraid, is Mark Peasy having another moment, and this one could well be retirement for him. The race leader's about to drop down towards Hawthorns then. The final time in this first of two Lotus On Track Elise Trophy races of the weekend. And up front it is Chris Randall, who is looking good. He took 2 class wins here at the start of the season. He took 2 class wins at Donington as well. And so his 100% record is going to be maintained, even though he switched classes to do it through Westfield. The road drops away, climbing up then towards Sheen Curve, and then on towards the left at Stirlings. There's Kell second, Kirby third, Skeggs is fourth, Walsh is fifth, and Ben Pitch round sixth. As number 88, Chris Randall, looks as though he is going to be in his usual position at the end of the race. In other words, on the top step of the podium. The first of 2 races in the Lotus On Track Elise Trophy. It's a great low-cost way to go racing, and Chris Randall thinks it's fantastic as well because he keeps on winning. Out of Clark Curve he comes, checkered flag at the ready, and so Randall still pulling away from Andrew Kell. He's about to come through to take the checkered flag now to win the first race of the weekend here at Brands Hatch. Kell takes second, Kirby third, and David Skeggs fourth. Andrew Walsh comes home in 5th place. 6th goes the way of Ben Pitch. Mark Gooday will be 7th, and Sean Bicknell, up from very nearly flat last on the grid, comes home in 9th position. He started 43rd, he finishes in 9th. A great drive. Well, let's confirm the results then as they came across the line. Chris Randall the winner from Andrew Kell second and Gavin Kirby third. 4th goes the way of David Skeggs ahead of Andrew Walsh and Ben Pitch, and then Mark Gooday and David Harvey just ahead of Sean Bicknell. Class A won by Michael Edwards, Hans Bamhart second, Paul Harding is third. Class B goes the way of Chris Randall from Gavin Kirby and David Skeggs. And in Class C, Andrew Kell victorious, Sean Bicknell second in class come the end of the race for 9th place overall. So a lively first race for the Lotus On Track Elise Trophy here at Brands Hatch. There's a second race to come this weekend. For now, though, from the top step of the podium, Chris Randall can feel very proud indeed. The race presentation's over, and a big crowd on hand, as I've been saying, to watch the action. Andrew Kell finds his fan club. But in the paddock, Emerson Fittipaldi and Tony Clements, the A1 Team GB seat holder, are on hand to make the presentations. There aren't many championships or series that can boast that. There is a very happy-looking Emerson Fittipaldi, having enjoyed watching the racing, and the trophies being handed over to the drivers. Paul Harding, the man that finishes 3rd in Class A, for example, there, receiving his trophy. The Class B drivers then in the reverse order. David Skeggs gets his cap and his trophy from Emerson Fittipaldi, the 1972 Formula 1 World Champion when he drove for Lotus. There, Gavin Kirby taking 2nd in class. Tony Clement shakes his hand, so too does Emerson Fittipaldi. And the class won by the overall race winner, and that is Chris Randall, who will make his way to the top step of the Class B podium. And Class C won by Andrew Kell. The real talking point, the pace of Sean Bicknell to fight his way up through the order, starting way back on the grid, 43rd, and coming home in 9th place. A great drive by Sean Bicknell, and Andrew Kell can celebrate a class win here at the end of the first of 2 races in the Lotus On Track Elise Trophy. It's a race enjoyed by everybody, and no doubt enjoyed too by Emerson Fittipaldi.
Thank you very much. I know it's our turn. Emerson Fittipaldi, you're twice Formula 1 World Champion in the Lotus. How do you remember those days?
I think it was a great time here in Brands Hatch and drive for Colin Chapman. He was, I would say, the best ever design of Formula 1 car, Grand Prix car. I learned everything with Colin, with Team Lotus, and we had like 5 years of fantastic relationship together. It was great. Great to win in the British Grand Prix in Brands Hatch, driving the John Play Special, the Lotus 72. It was fantastic.
Pretty fun times then. And how does it feel to you seeing all these Lotus cars here this weekend entered? I know it's not Formula 1, but still a huge championship that's going on here.
Well, I think it's great to see all the enthusiasm, you know, new talent, new people. Motor race is a great sport, and that's racing. It's wonderful.
What a privilege for drivers to be presented their trophies by ex-Formula 1 and Lotus World Champion Emerson Fittipaldi. Join us after the break for race 2. Well, 44 cars started race 1 and 11 non-finishers means that teams and drivers have got a lot of hard work to do. Hi Mark, can we just interrupt you for a second?
Yep.
You were one of 11 non-finishers yesterday.
Yeah.
What happened to the car?
I've had electrical problems basically since sort of Friday morning. Had problems with qualifying. Didn't get out. Managed to get out with the Heritage Touring cars, which meant I started from the back of the grid. Over the course of the weekend, we've now replaced distributor, rotor arm, leads, plugs, ground sensor, coil, and just done the gearbox earth. So fingers crossed, it was up and running again, and be finishing the race today.
You're obviously busy fixing damage from yesterday, and you've got a lot of gaffer tape on the car. What happened to you?
I had a crash out at Hawthorne, fighting for probably 10th place, I think, and a car in front of the car in front of me spun and got collected by the car in front of me, and then that car went across the track and I hit it quite hard, and it's damaged the front, broken the fiberglass, damaged the suspension, and we're now trying to put it right.
Nasty. Do you think you're going to get out in time for the race?
Well, I'm doing a really bad job of fixing it at the moment, so there's a possibility I might not make it, but fingers crossed we'll get there somehow.
You're clearly rather busy down here. What's exactly happening?
We're changing the head gasket, mainly because Russ buzzed the car in the first race and bent all the valves on the exhaust cam. So the pistons have got little nicks in them, but everything's all right. So we've borrowed a cylinder head. We're changing the whole head and everything. So. But with the engine in the car, it's rather difficult. But yes, we're getting there.
Nigel, you're on your second gearbox, I take it?
Third.
Third? How come?
Another one on, because we had a leak yesterday of oil. So rather than chance it breaking, I've put another box in this morning.
Goodness me, that's expensive, surely?
No, it's not so bad. We've put cheaper standard gearboxes in just for this time. We've had enough of spending a lot of money.
So Sean, you made it from 43rd on the grid and finished 9th. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was. I wished just qualifying had been a bit more impressive. We had as usual, the £2 part let us down, so we didn't qualify at all. So we put on the back of the grid, and yeah, it was hard work, man. Those Class A guys are just nutters. They're all over the place. Trying to get past them was difficult. So. And
it was a hard race for overtaking as well, with so many yellows.
Yeah, it was. The first safety car, to be honest, helped us out because it kind of closed everyone back up. I think by the first safety car I could count, I was up to 17th, and I'd kind of had another go at them then. And but yeah, the second safety car then kind of scuppered us because we kind of run out of time. But yeah, it was good fun.
So unfortunately, you didn't finish the race yesterday. What happened? Despite 11 non-finishers in race 1, 42 cars now head out to the track for race 2. Let's take a look at those grids.
The grid very similar to what we had for the first race. Chris Randall is the man on pole position, with Andrew Kell lining up second ahead of Gavin Kirby and David Skeggs. Steve Williams will be one to watch starting on the third row. Paul Quinn with his tank tape special is on row 7 after his accident yesterday when he collided with the man with him on the grid, Martin Johnston. Lower back on the grid, Russ Treasure will be trying to make some progress, as also will Paul Harding, third in Class A in the first race of the weekend. And of course, right at the very back, you've got Sean Bicknell, although Chris Pearson will be eager to make amends after his dramas in the first race of the weekend as well. But Sean Bicknell once more has got to do the hard work, having qualified only 43rd, and that was by dint of doing laps out of session. That's Paul Quinn's view then, ready for the start. Gavin Kirby is ready, so too is Andrew Walsh. The lights go out, away they go, and this time Gavin Kirby makes a better start than in race 1 as Sean Bicknell goes to the grass in his efforts to try to gain a place or two. Right up alongside Adam Hamilton-Fletcher going towards paddock, but there's no surprise about the race leader because Chris Randall has done it again. Andrew Kell is second, and then third it's David Skeggs. Fourth is Gavin Kirby as the cars climb up towards Druids then. Side by side for third, Skeggs on the inside, Kirby on the outside, and Gavin can't do it there, but he runs wide, goes all over the grasscrete and the curb, but he's got the inside line still for the next corner. Into Graham Hill Bend, through on the inside he goes, and that nets him third place now. Skeggs drops back into fourth. David Skeggs goes to the outside then as they head towards 30s. In fifth place behind them it's Steve Williams, and Ben Pitch is sixth. Andrew Walsh going through as well as they turn their way now onto the Grand Prix part of the circuit. Not the best of starts by Andrew Walsh, but he's trying to make amends now as the cars accelerate down towards Hawthorns. There's a spinner in the background. Off has gone Tom Chataway, number 62, and that's delayed another couple of Class A drivers. I think they're all going to be able to keep going. Yes, they are. Thankfully, no contact. Paul Patterson in 47 was another driver being delayed. David Harvey, number 51, sprinting his way now up towards the right-hander at Westfield. As there you can see number 42, Mark Gooday, trying to gain a place from him on the inside, and Gooday does indeed move ahead then. The car's climbing up towards Sheen Curve for the first time, and Andrew Kell has slipped back behind Gavin Kirby, who's going great guns here. It's Randall leading, Kirby up to second, Kell third, fourth is Skeggs, fifth is Williams, sixth is Pitch, and seventh is Andrew Walsh. Rob Beebe's in number 96, another newcomer this year, accelerating his way down towards Clark Curve, through the right-hander, come the race leaders, and then up over the start and finish line. It's a very demanding lap, the Grand Prix circuit here, and that's why perhaps lower down the order the field has become a little more strung out. But up front, the enormous crowd witnessing a great drive by Chris Randall, who once again is using all of his experience to good use. He's trying to pull away from this man, Gavin Kirby, who's lost it. Oh no! Gavin Kirby, who was doing a really good job in second place, I'm afraid, has got it all wrong going through paddock. And you could see, despite all the arm twirling inside the cockpit, there was nothing he could do to save it. There's a forlorn hope to drive out of the gravel, and somewhere in that dust cloud is Gavin Kirby. He's going no further then as the rest of the field turn their way through Druids. Gary Broad, the carpenter, in number 23, accelerates out of the right-hander. The dust is still settling in the background. Gavin Kirby walks away. And a very frustrated man he is, because he was doing his best to shake off Cal and catch Chris Randall, and then he just overdoes it going through paddock, off into the gravel, and that's the game over. So Chris Randall's lead is another enormous one. In second place, Andrew Kell, David Skeggs now third. And lower down the order, we've got Chris Pearson and Sean Bicknell making progress. Also on the move there, 55, Chris Headlam. Now remember, we didn't really see the best of him in race one. He only got as far as Druids on the first lap and went into the gravel. And that, a replay of the demise of Gavin Kirby. Accelerates his way through paddock, loses the back of the car. The gravel does its job, stops him before he hits anything solid. And there is a rather dusty Gavin Kirby out of the race. And that balaclava is set for the laundry at the end of the weekend, because that'll be all gravelly as well. But disappointment for him. He was underlining his pace though, because of course he's moved up from Class A to Class B this year and thinking about doing something about his class rival Chris Randall, until disaster struck. Lower down the order, battles on in Class A. Stuart Kirkbride, number 41, moves through to gain a place. Number 9, Martin Roberts behind him. Remember that Martin was a spinner into the gravel in the first race of the weekend, so he's keeping out of trouble here. And ahead of them is Chris Pearson, who is also working his way up through the traffic now. Over the start and finish line comes this midfield battle. Paul Quinn, with all that yellow tack tape on the car, out on his own. But Gavin Kirby's car is not that far away from the edge of the road, and I think we are going to have to go safety car. Yes, there is the safety car deployed onto the track. The reason being that if anybody else runs wide at paddock, they could well strike that parked car. So to get that moved out of harm's way, the safety car is needed. Everybody, therefore, will bunch up. And as in race one of the weekend, Chris Randall's lead is about to evaporate. Andrew Kell, once again, will catch up to him. David Skeggs running third. Steve Williams in the yellow car is fourth. The dark green car is that of Ben Pitch in fifth place. And that is the reason for the interruption. Gavin Kirby's car undamaged, but in the gravel. And it needs all the cars to be bunched up together behind the safety car to enable the marshals to work safely. All of these laps under the safety car do count within the 20-minute duration. Gavin Kirby gets back into his rather gravelly Lotus 211. The race about to get underway then. The safety car peels in this time, and Chris Randall slows the pace of the race. That means that everybody else has to back off behind him, and as they do so, he can then floor the throttle and get away. You're on board with David Skeggs looking at the back of Andrew Kell's car. Yellow flag still being waved, the green flag is ready on the start line. The race is about to resume. You can't overtake until you get to the green flag, get to the timing line. Chris Randall goes through now, Andrew Kell going with him. The race is back underway then. In third place you've got David Skeggs, and there, look, trying to go around the outside. 78 is Ben Pitch, but Andrew Walsh in the black car has a look on the inside, clips the curb, little dab on the brakes, and he goes through still sixth with Mark Gooday seventh in the orange 211, not that far behind him. The cars now turn their way up out of the right-hander at Druids, and then sprint down towards Graham Hill Bend once again, where already Chris Randall is starting to get away. You can see the battle on for second and third places now. It is Kell just ahead of Skeggs. These two nose to tail. Fourth is Steve Williams. He's another driver who goes well in Class B and has a look on the inside of Skeggs and very nearly got level. The door is closed, though, just in the nick of time by David Skeggs, but of course he now being stuck behind the Class C leader, Andrew Kell, whilst he's trying to attack, also has to be mindful of defending that place now. He's got Steve Williams right up with him, and Chris Headlam, number 55, is going very well indeed here. The yellow car diving up on the inside, look to go ahead of Mark Gooday, coming down towards Hawthorns, and the former kart racer moves through up on the inside line then. Chris Headlam goes through, gains a place. The man from Smallfield then goes ahead of Mark Gooday, and Gooday in turn has got 51 there, right on his tail, and that's David Harvey, who missed race one, but he's going well in race two. Up through Sheen Curve, on towards Stirling's, come the race leaders. And of course that safety car having bunched everybody up means that we've got more and more battles raging on through the field. Chris Randall, though, doesn't really want to play with anybody else. He's quite happy to keep winning in this series. He's pulling away up front. Down they come towards Clark Curve. He's raced in Lotus races, he's raced in GT races, he's raced in historic Group C. Chris Randall has huge amounts of experience. His father Nick, also a good classic sports car racer, and Chris then now comes up over the line. Andrew Kell second and dropping away a little bit, but he's also managed to shake off David Skeggs, so he's not under any immediate pressure, but Andrew's got to be careful not to make a mistake here, because that will give David Skeggs the place if he does so. Skeggs, though, goes wide at paddock. Heading now towards Druids. Behind them it's Williams, behind him is Walsh, and then Ben Pitch also trying to be a factor within that leading group. Andrew Kell against limited opposition in Class C this weekend, leading his class. Lower down the order you've got Chris Headlam, who is also working his way to the front, and you've got Sean Bicknell still trying to make progress as well. There, Martin Roberts, number 9, losing a place, is he? Yes, because through on the inside there goes Ian Berry. The man from Brands Hatch takes away a place, driving Paul Golding's car. And other battles continue all the way through the field. Another place has just been gained there by Guy Thatcher, despite using the curb and the grass green to his advantage. He's gone through. Sean Bicknell ahead of Paul Quinn now. Sean Bicknell's turbo car whistles past us, and he's still climbing his way up the order. James Knight goes through. That's Baumhart going well also within Class A, and keeping at bay at the moment Paul Harding. Class A numerically the strongest, and it still delivers some great battles. Quinn ahead of Knight, ahead of Baumhart. Then you can see Paul Harding is right there in touch as well as they come now up towards the right-hander of Westfield, having a go to the inside there. You can see Baumhart, but also not only is he trying to get past Knight, he's also trying to defend. The cars accelerate their way now up towards Sheen Curve. At the head of the field, though, it remains Chris Randall. Is he going to be able to do the double here at Brands Hatch this weekend? Join us to find out right after the break. Welcome back to Brands Hatch. Race 2 of the weekend for the Lotus on-track Elise Trophy, and it's being led by the dominant driver this season, Chris Randall, who has yet to be beaten. Andrew Kell lies second, and this second race of the weekend takes place in front of an enormous crowd here at Brands Hatch. This one of the support events to A1GP. That has delivered some great action, and so too have the Lotuses. Now, Chris Randall is the man in charge at the moment, but Andrew Kell doing his level best to go with him. But in Class A, there's a great scrap going on. Hans Baumhart then just being able at the moment to fend off number 99 James Knight as the cars turn their way through paddock and climb up towards Druids. Paul Harding is involved as well, but Paul Quinn's yellow car, despite being held together by lots of tank tape, is the one in the lead. Side by side there you see the road registered cars in Class A going through the hairpin. And James Knight hard at work to try to hang on to a place. Paul Quinn, though, escaping further up the road. The yellow car, he's an experienced driver, Paul Quinn, former ARP Formula 3 champion. He also engineers a lot of cars, not only for national racing, but also historic Grand Prix cars as well. He's looked after in the past. The Fittipaldi, for example, was raced last year by Steve Allen. Quinn accelerating his way down towards the right-hander there at Hawthorne. Gary Broad is also involved in that Class A battle now, but Quinn looking very strong indeed. Lower down the class then, the fight for the last place on the podium really is where the drama is now. It's James Knight just ahead there, you can see, of Gary Broad, and Paul Harding is running with them. The other class is Class B, being led by Chris Randall, the man who leads overall, as they're diving up on the inside. Harding takes a place away from Gary Broad. He goes through on the inside at Westfield and moves himself ahead. Class C being led by Andrew Kell, and Kell is second overall. They're just going out of shot in the blue car, being pursued vigorously now by David Skeggs. The cars come up over the line with this other great little battle raging on lower down the order. That's Steve Williams' yellow car being monstered now by Andrew Walsh as they head towards the right-hander at paddock. Andrew, the man that made history by winning the very first ever Lotus on-track Elise Trophy race, has a look on the inside, then going into the braking area for Druids. Steve Williams gives him racing room. Walsh hooks a wheel or two up over the curb, but he's not going to be able to find a way through there. Downhill they come now. Out of Graham Hill band, Kell second, Skeggs third. Long gone ahead of all of them, though, is Chris Randall, who now is starting to work his way towards yet another victory. He's the benchmark driver in this class, although Andrew Walsh is no slouch. And he then turning his way through in Class B on the tail of his class rival Steve Williams. Williams runs wide. Is that going to give him a chance now coming down towards Hawthorns? Just a slight error made by Steve Williams there. But the man from Maidenhead, Steve Williams, hangs on to the place. This, though, is Walsh's view. Down to the braking area at Hawthorns. He's not really able to think about making a move there. They turn their way through the corner and go now up towards the right at Westfield. Somebody getting it a little bit wrong there, going into Druids. Number 11 that was, Russ Treasure. The good news is that the Class A car is proving to be a bit more reliable than the car he had last year, and therefore Russ Treasure is still in the race, albeit further down the order. Now he's off the road as well, runs really wide coming out of Graham Hill Bend, rattles over the curbs. He's still going, even if this car doesn't have the pace as the rather unreliable Class C, much more modified car from last season. Number 13, Matthew Bartlett, involved with his red and white Elise here, coming down towards Hawthorns. He's on the tail of number 44, Stuart Moult. He's on the inside of him and trying to squeeze through, but no, Stuart Moult is just able to keep the place then as they come through the corner. They've got Tess Howell going with them as well as they now accelerate up towards the right at Westfield. It's a 20-minute race, and we've already had one safety car period because of Gavin Kirby being in the gravel. Those laps counted towards the overall duration, and that means, therefore, there are relatively few racing laps left now. In the first race of the weekend, we had to go through 2 safety car periods. They're being a bit better behaved here at the moment. Mark Gooday, number 42, goes through, having lost a place now to David Harvey ahead of him. David Harvey with his 340R, a similar car to that, being driven by Andrew Walsh as they sprint their way now up towards the line. Past the pits goes number 2, Ian Berry, at the helm this weekend of Paul Golding's car. Paul Golding, the man who's the real driving force behind the Lotus On Track Elise Trophy. And it's being watched on the giant screens around Brands Hatch by a big, big crowd. They're being rewarded with some good racing all the way through the field. But Sean Bicknell, I'm afraid, has had poor reward for his weekend's efforts. He had an engine problem in qualifying, and that's why he's had to start both races at the back of the grid. But it looks as though the Gremlins have struck once again, look, because the car is slowing down. He's bound for the pits, isn't he, now? So poor old Sean Bicknell looks as though his race is not going to last a whole lot longer. He gets out of the way then, coming out of Surtees as Russ Treasure dives up the inside then, going into Graham Hill Bend. A place gain, he goes through on the inside of Tom Chataway's car. Russ Treasure driving well, and there's somebody else with a problem ahead of him, look. A driver with his hand out of the window, slowly making his way towards retirement, and that is Andy Dolan. Despite the fact that the car says for sale on the front of it, Chris Randall's mount is serving him well here. He leads rather dominantly, it must be said, at the moment. Nobody else has had a look in all weekend, and Chris Randall is up at the hairpin at Druids, looking very strong indeed. Double winner at Brands at the start of the year, double winner at Donington. He's had one win here this weekend. It looks as though he's going to do another double. He's the benchmark driver in the series, and he turns his way now up towards the left-hander at Surtees. Chris Randall then looking strong. Andrew Kell second, David Skaggs is third, and then in 4th place Steve Williams. Now he's not really in touch anymore, nor is he being monstered particularly by the black 340R of Andrew Walsh as they go onto the Grand Prix part of the circuit. On board with David Skaggs now, blasting his way down towards Hawthorns. Bit smoky there, the back of Andrew Kell's car, but Kell still safe in that second position. In 3rd it's Skaggs as they go now into Hawthorns. Great little battle here though, look, as the car of Gary Broad is just able to keep James Knight at bay. Nose to tail those two as they go through the hairpin at Druids and then drop down towards the left at Graham Hill Bend. They've got Stuart Kirkbride running with them as well. Now a long Cooper straight heading towards the left at Surtees. Also in Class A here you can see number 45 Peter Driver. He fends off 37. That's the car of Mike Davis. And right on the tail end of those cars battling is 44 of Stuart Moult. Behind them Matthew Bartlett goes a little bit wide. But David Skaggs is still pushing hard, and I just wonder whether Andrew Kell may have a problem. His lap times have gone up a little bit, and there's a puff of smoke there as he turns his way through Stirling's, accelerates away, and there's a huge cloud of smoke. That engine has let go in a very spectacular fashion. Andrew Kell's race is run. Andrew Walsh dives to the left of it, picks his way through the smoke screen, and Andrew Kell is going no further. Poor reward that after 2 very good drives this weekend. That takes the pressure off Chris Randall. It also now gives 2nd place to David Skaggs. Well, Chris Randall's on target for a race win, but Andrew Kell, I'm afraid, faces an engine rebuild before the next round of the series, and that is going to be at Spa at the end of the month. So Chris Randall then heading for the checkered flag. He's up towards Surtees. He's got to work his way through the traffic past 1 or 2 of the slower back markers that keep out of his way. Chris Randall dominated race 1. He leads race 2 as well as he sprints now down towards Hawthorns. He's on target to win in Class B as well. The top 3 overall now, the new order: Randall, Skaggs and Williams, all Class B drivers. So where's the leading Class C car with the demise of Andrew Kell? That's Chris Headlam. Retirement in race 1 because he was in the gravel bed. Looks like he's going to get a class win out of the weekend as Graham Walsh, number 8, turns through. Class A at the moment, being headed by Paul Quinn, making up for yesterday's disappointment when he had a rather battered car. So, on board with Andrew Walsh. Through Westfield, the road drops away to the right then through Sheen Curve, up towards Stirlings. Andrew Walsh hard at work, but Chris Randall then is looking good for his third double of the season. The smoke is still settling after Andrew Kell's big engine blow-up. And this is how David Skeggs saw it. Suddenly, up through the gears goes Kell, the engine lets go, and all of that white smoke obscures his view just briefly, but David Skeggs able to dive to the left, gain the place. So Chris Randall then is set for a win, because at the end of the second 20-minute Lotus on Track Elise Trophy race of the weekend, he comes up towards the checkered flag, and Chris Randall has made Brands Hatch his own this weekend. Through he comes then to win the race. Chris Randall is victorious. It's a long wait really before now for second place across the line comes David Skeggs. 7 seconds adrift he is at the end, and third will go the way of Steve Williams, but only just, because only 2 tenths away from him Andrew Walsh, the two crossing the line almost side by side. Well, let's confirm the way the top 10 came through. Randall, Skeggs, Williams, Walsh. You know Ben Pitch was 5th. Chris Headlam takes 6th to win his class ahead of David Harvey, and then it's Mark Goodate, Rob Beavis and Andrew Waters going well to round out the top 10. The classes, Paul Quinn ahead of Paul Harding and Hans Baumhart in Class A. Class B, that man Randall again from Skeggs and Williams. And Class C, Chris Headlam takes a win ahead of Chris Pearson. So the drivers making their way to the podium. The class winners with Chris Randall, a very happy man. Yet another double victory here at Brands Hatch this weekend, and he's done it at the Blue Ribbon race for the Lotus On Track Elise Trophy in front of a big crowd supporting A1GP.
So Paul, another fantastic result for you, and you managed to get out again.
Yeah, I managed not to crash either, which was really good news. So got the car repaired, and it was going pretty well, really.
Well done. And Chris, top result for yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's great. First time on the podium.
And are you new to the Lotus Series?
I am indeed. It's my first year.
And you're enjoying it?
Absolutely. It's a wonderful crowd of people. Absolutely.
And Randy, another blinding race.
Yeah, thanks. I like my little blue car. It's good.
The opposition may not like it as much because they can't beat that one either. The presentations then for the classes. We start with Class A, where there's the usual frivolity. Hans Baumhart taking 3rd, Paul Harding taking 2nd. And the class winner is Paul Quinn. Another very impressive display, despite the car having all of that tank tape stuck on it after its accident in race 1. The top 3 in Class B in reverse order. Well, 3rd in class will go the way of Steve Williams. He steps forward in a moment to receive his trophy. 2nd in the class goes the way of a very happy David Skeggs. This also, of course, the top 3 overall, and therefore there's no argument about the race winner. Chris Randall does it again. He's got enough trophies, I think, already, hasn't he? Brings one with him to then receive it again. And Chris Randall at the top step of the podium once more. Class winner, overall race winner, another dominant weekend. And the Class C cars a bit frail this weekend, but Chris Pearson at least finishes race 2. He finishes 2nd in class. And the class win goes to a man new to the Lotus On Track Elite Trophy this year. Ex-kart racer Chris Headlam making up for his trip into the gravel in race 1.
Well, a fantastic weekend racing here at Brands Hatch, supporting, of course, the A1GP. Join us next time from Morton Park.
My name's Judy Broekhoven. Welcome to Spa for the international round of the Elise Trophy. There will be a full grid this weekend, consisting of both UK and European drivers. There will be 2 races. The first one is going to be a 30-minute race. Let's go find out how they did at qualifying.
We're here with Paul Patterson. How did you do, Paul?
Not bad. I was pleased with the times, but I did have an accident in qualifying, avoiding a car that had stopped on the track with a mechanical problem, so I hit the barrier. But it's all fixed now and good for tomorrow.
How did you do today?
Pole. Can't be better than that.
Is it because there's not that much competition today?
My car's faster than it.
What do you think of that?
I would say that due to traffic on the last lap, he got a very fortunate pole.
So there's good stuff to come tomorrow then?
There's lots to come tomorrow. I hope just that we put on a good race for the spectators. We're both 2 wise old foxes, and you know, to finish first yet to finish. Is that right, Andrew?
That's right, so I'm going to try to make sure he doesn't hit me.
Andrew, how does it feel to drive a car that won't go bang?
Well, it hasn't gone bang yet. We've done qualifying. Let's see how it goes in the races. But fingers crossed, it'll be all right.
Are you happy how it went in the race or in the qualification?
Yeah, not too bad. The car's a lot quicker than I am at the moment, but I'm just starting to learn it, so we'll see how we go tomorrow.
The yellow car is yours.
Fine, yeah.
You seem to have done quite well today.
Well, it's not so bad, but I was very tired, so tomorrow will be better. We'll have more sleep this night.
You only came over late last night.
This morning we started at 5 o'clock in Ostend, but we have only 2-3 hours sleep to prepare these cars, so it was not that bad.
Okay. I had qualified 17th, and I hadn't driven the circuit for about 18 months, and only once in this car before it was race prepped, and I was a bit nervous and took it quite casually in qualifying. I was okay with 17th.
Didn't go quite as well as we'd hoped this morning, but we had some problems in the week, had to change the gearbox, so the car was slightly different to what it was in initial testing. But overall, it'll be quite good tomorrow, I think.
The magnificent Spa-Francorchamps circuit here in the Ardennes Mountains really is a tremendous setting for these drivers. The green flag is being waved at the back of the grid. All 46 cars are ready to go, and it is going to be a scintillating race for these guys. A good start from the front row man. Martin Donnelly just tucks in behind our race leader there. Andrew Walsh looks like he's got away well. Ben Pitch we're riding on board with, looking to his right. You can see Steve Williams as they brake hard for the famous La Source hairpin. Sweeping through and down towards probably the most... Oh, Ben Pitch wasn't sweeping through at all. There was contact there. Somebody got tapped around. It looked like one of the 340Rs. Couldn't quite see who that was. I think it may have been Chris Headlam. No, it was David Harvey there. That is the 340R of David Harvey. What a great disappointment for him. Looks like he's into the pits already now. This has got to be the most famous corner in motorsport, hasn't it? Eau Rouge, the driver sweep through the left and the right, up the hill, over the brow, and it is looking like it's Andrew Walsh who's just about got the break from the rest of the pack. And it is absolutely a tremendous sight, isn't it, as they charge through the pack there. Ben Pitch now in 9th place after that little bit of contact. It seems to have got a good run there. Seems to be getting a nice run there. That's Christophe Lissandre, one of the local drivers. A nice mixture of our regular drivers that are racing in the Lotus On Track series in the UK, mixed in with a few of the local guys and guys that race in the European series. Sean Becknell, good to see him out here in Spa. 2nd place for him, looking very neat and tidy through some very technical section. 7.3 kilometres long this circuit, so an awful lot of learning to be done for the drivers. Many of them will have not been to Spa before, and those that know the circuit well will really have an advantage. The man that obviously springs to mind, of course, who's been around here in the ultimate racing machine is Martin Donnelly. As a Formula One driver, of course, experienced the magnificent Spa, and the ride now with Donnelly in his 211, the full-speed racing run car. Mark Speller and his guys enjoying the trip out here to Belgium. And remarkably good weather for Spa. Usually you see a mixture of rain and sunshine and pretty much everything that can be thrown at you. It's a bit like Knockhill in Scotland. If you don't like the weather, you just hang around for a few minutes and it usually changes. But at the moment it seems to be looking pretty decent for the drivers, and that's one less thing for them to worry about. Ben Pitch still in the middle of the pack, works his way up a little bit further from the 9th position we saw him in last time when he'd lost a little bit of time. Looking at the 211 there, I think that's the back of Mark Gooday's car that we're looking at there as they sweep through this final part before they go through the infinitely quick section, as they're going to come down in a few corners time to the tremendously daunting Blanchimont corner, the left-hander, which most of these guys will be taken flat out or certainly very close to it before they have to get the cars slowed down and stopped for the famous bus stop. It does look like Pitch has got a little bit of momentum, being very brave. A lot of the drivers in this series really are renowned for their commitment. And a little tap of the brakes there from 211 ahead, and who can blame him? Certainly on the first lap when tyres and possibly brains are still a little bit cold at this stage. So we watch with interest as they get onto the brakes. Looks like Pitch now just out and through on Goudet. Yes, he does get a nice clean overtake done, I think. Yes, gets the car stopped into a very, very challenging section here, the bus stop chicane, as it's known. It's gone through about 3 or 4 different configurations in recent years, and certainly at the moment it's one of the more difficult ones. It certainly caught out a certain Mr. Lewis Hamilton this year, and that certainly had a major implication on his World Championship. But anyway, back to the action with Lotus, and we can see Doug Setters' car coming into view, being followed by the white car of Martin Johnson. The pack then unfolds, and you can see that this wonderful mixture of the modified cars and the standard cars creating an interesting challenge. Some of the drivers who are perhaps a little bit more used to the circuit, or maybe have had a little bit more experience, seem to be getting to grips with it, although the 46 car, they're having a big spin. That's not quite part of the plan there, and John Townsend will have a nice little war story to tell when he gets back to the UK after what looked to me like a very ambitious overtaking manoeuvre. Now we ride on board with Michael Edwards in a 33 car. He has been very quick at times, had a tremendous battle at Snetterton earlier this season. Two very, very different circuits. The only thing I suppose in common is length of straights. Look how long that straight is. They come down into, they come sweeping right, then left, then they have a very technical section before they go right once again, then down to the Bruxelles corner. Here the guys have got to get on the power nice and smoothly, not run too wide. Edwards looks like he's got a bit of momentum, and definitely looks like he was catching a little bit through there. Steve Williams meanwhile in 4th place, cautiously turning into left-hander, picking the truck up. Almost sounds like a problem, I think, for Steve. Certainly did sound like there was something not working well. Not normally like Steve to be that careful through there. That, I think, is Steve Williams on our right. It is, just pulling off the circuit. Certainly a great shame, having come a fair old way. Well, another chance to race again later this weekend. Ben Pitch, though, is on a mission after that dramatic incident at the start of the race. He seems to have been gently getting quicker and quicker. Long race, 30 minutes for these drivers around here, and could see 10 or 11 laps in total, depending on if they have any safety cars or anything like that, would affect potentially how the race could unfold. Ben Pitch now just neatly driving the car through the section at the top of the hill. Edwards now looking out the window and starting to close down, and getting a very, very good run as he comes through the left-hander there. This time, though, he's just working out where perhaps he has a little bit more pace. Certainly going to be a very, very difficult place to overtake through that section, but here, maybe if Edwards can get a good run, he might be able to be in a position to come through those two left-handers in a moment and then get a run into the bus stop chicane. Meanwhile, the 96 of Rob Bevis comes through and actually just capitalises on maybe where Edwards was just working out where he could find some pace, gets the job done through there. As the rest of the pack behind that seem to be one great big scrap for about 10th place at the moment. 43 there, Johnson coming through. A shot, and he certainly has had some great runs so far this season. But all of these drivers, well, we heard from them earlier on, just loving the fact they've got the opportunity to race at what has got to be the most spectacular race circuit in Europe that you can run. Here, I think, and the Nürburgring are two circuits that everybody would love to race on, and certainly from my own experience racing a Lotus here a few years ago in the pouring rain in the Lotus Sport Elise series was probably one of the most exciting experiences I ever had as a race driver. So it was I can understand and totally relate to the thrill that these guys are going to. This side here, out of your windscreen, coming down the hill into Eau Rouge, and you manage to do it flat. You have to have a lift back on the power here. The car compresses down on the suspension, a little bit of a wiggle through. Edwards using a bit of the extra road there, and a real benefit there to the drivers is that now with most of the F1 circuits, you of course have tarmac as a bit of a runoff rather than just gravel is what you normally would see on the exit there. Chris Headlam in the yellow car, just getting the job done there, the Kent-based driver. We've seen racing in all sorts of different things, and 340R as well as something in his armoury as well. Pitch and Headlam, two fairly experienced drivers, both very quick. Ben Pitch, well, they always talk about Cadwell Park in the UK being a bit like the mini Nürburgring, and that's a circuit that Ben was really quick at. So perhaps the classic circuits, even though Cadwell perhaps would have been an obvious one to compare, but certainly has a lot of similarities in the level of commitment that you need as a racing driver to be able to be fast there. And perhaps that's why he likes this uphill and down-dale view that you're seeing here at Spa. Meanwhile, Martin Donnelly now starting to close down on Sean Bicknell. And a big problem there for Bicknell, a big puff of black smoke coming from the back of the car. Let's listen. That's not a healthy Lotus, is it at all? It sounds like that something's gone wrong there with Bicknell's car. Clearly going to put him out of the race, or certainly slow him down an awful lot. And you can see the amount of time he's lost just at that stage from Donnelly. Donnelly must be thinking that was nice and easy. Didn't have to worry about that too much. And he's away and gone and up the road. Meanwhile, this man, well, look at the lead that he's got. We know that the class of Andrew Walsh as a driver, but also the class of Andrew Walsh as an engineer, getting him and the team getting this car working superbly well. Just about everywhere he's raced this season, he's always been on the pace. We've seen some tremendous battles between Walsh and especially Chris Randall. He's another guy that we normally would see out here, and they're the two guys that seem to have been regularly fighting for overall victory. Of course, it's the class categories here, or class system, if you like, we have with the Lotus On-Track Series, different classes for different cars. Normally there's a dedicated class for the 211s that we just saw going through our shot there as Headlam once again negotiates Eau Rouge. And the 211s are the cars that probably grab people's attention the most in terms of the very, very distinctive look. The Elise has become such an iconic little sports car in the years that it's been around in the industry, and certainly it's a testament to the guys that have organised such a fantastic series to give drivers. A lot of them have just been focusing on doing some track days. Great way to experience your sports car or your road car in safety and learn from professional drivers the way to get the best out of the car. And then all these guys, or certainly most of these guys, have progressed from that kind of experience into racing regularly, and that's why we see such a great mixture of really experienced drivers like Martin Donnelly and some guys that are new to the sport. Brilliant way to get them involved and to get them on board. Christophe Sandra there in the black car, the black 211, putting a little bit more pressure. Certainly it's possible that he may well be able to keep Mark Goudet very, very honest throughout the latter part of the race, maybe not in the circuit a little bit better, who knows. Meanwhile, Ben Pitch, he's certainly not given up on his chase of Chris Headlam. At one point there it did look like they were going to potentially clatter into each other. They seem to be so close, but they seem to drive sensibly enough and fairly enough to give themselves a little bit of a gap and work independently of each other and perhaps work their way towards the cars in front. Meanwhile, the sun seems to be getting brighter, temperatures perhaps increasing a little bit here at Spa. As Tom Chataway, now here's a man who really enjoys his racing. He seems to be having yet another really good scrap with one of his regular drivers from the On-Track Series in the UK, regular competitors as it were. Meanwhile, the action continues through the pack, and that scrap between Chataway and a 47 car of Paul Patterson side by side through Eau Rouge. That's definitely going to be a story that's told, isn't it, a bit later on when the guys get to the bar later on. Well, we were side by side scrapping, we managed to get through there, and the race continued, the battle continued all the way around the rest of the lap. That's the sort of stories that these boys will be able to take away from their adventure out here in Belgium, and certainly that battle rather, is going to run and run for the remainder of this race for sure. And as I said, at least the weather is working to make these drivers just have one little thing less to worry about, because Spa invariably does create some pretty torrential weather because of where it sits in the Ardennes Mountains. If you look around, it's beautiful scenery around here, just these wonderful pine trees for as far as the eye can see. In fact, you don't have to travel that far and you're going to end up in Germany.
Welcome back to the second part of the international round of the Elise Trophy here at Spa. We're going to now look at the second race, which is a 40-minute race, which includes mandatory pit stops.
So another race at Spa-Francorchamps for the Lotus On-Track Series. A familiar look to the front row. On our right is Martin Donnelly, on our left race one winner Andrew Walsh, but like an absolute rocket through the middle of the pair of them, the green car, the 78 car of Ben Pitch. What a tremendous start from Pitch. Gets on the brakes into La Saucere, being a bit too late, and immediately all that hard work, that fantastic start has been undone, and he hands the initiative back to our race one winner Andrew Walsh as he climbs out of the hairpin and then charges downhill towards Eau Rouge. You now ride on board with Michael Edwards, and that's Paul Quinn just sweeping across in front of him in the yellow and blue car, and the rest of the pack all fighting to get themselves a little bit of space on the first lap. Donnelly meanwhile watching the battle unfold around him. Chris Headlam has had a really good first lap there. He gets the job done and gets himself up into second place ahead of Ben Pitch. What tremendous straight line speed for Headlam's car there. And look how much quicker Donnelly is there through Lecombe, going into the right-hander as they come out of the right-hander down towards the Bruxelles hairpin. Does look like Donnelly has got to run certainly at Pitch. I think he's going to be later on the brakes, holds the car in tight. You can see the scuffs on the road where the cars are braking hard, trying to overtake. Bit of oversteer one way, then the other way for Martin Donnelly. Well, if there's any man that's equipped to deal with a full-blooded power slide, it's going to be Martin Donnelly, with all the experience that he's got. Of course, having raced F1 here, Formula 3000, Formula 3s, all kinds of things over the years. And he's loving being back racing at the front of the Lotus On Track Series. Mark Speller, who runs Full Speed Racing, who looks after the car. So it's been an absolute pleasure dealing with Donnelly throughout the season. Always enthusiastic. Look at that little slide through Paul there. If ever there was any doubt about his commitment, that's pretty much says it all. Headlam and Pitch both now struggling to keep up with Donnelly, and a spin for Doug Setters. He had a good run in race one. I think he's just about got the car under control. Meanwhile, we're now back once again with Michael Edwards still looking at Paul Quinn, and Edwards and Quinn had a tremendous scrap earlier this season at Snetterton, so they know each other well enough. And Donnelly, we were just praising his car control, and just to curse the commentator, he has a little wobble there. But just about gets it all under control. Now here from Sean Bicknell's car, the number 19 car. We saw him have a bit of a technical problem in the race earlier. Finished 28th, in fact, because of those problems, but he gets a good start past Martin Roberts, past Michael Edwards, who we were riding on board with a moment ago, just around the outside of Gary Broad. There is Ben Pitch's car. We just saw the cloud of smoke coming from the tortured front right tyre of that car. But Bicknell, see, the challenge you have in Lotus On Track is just finding a bit of room. There's so many cars out there. 37 cars starting this race. A few of the local drivers that raced in race one here not racing in this particular one. And that's because there's some other stuff going on this weekend here at Spa-Francorchamps. Look as Bicknell just tries to find a bit of a gap now, just trying to get to the outside of Stuart Kirkbride. Managing to do that. To the inside of Edwards. There you can see what a wonderful shot. I remember years ago when Ricardo Zonta was passed either side by Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher coming into this section. That was one of the most iconic shots in Formula One history, and it wasn't quite as dramatic as that, but there was a certain element of wonderful shot of going from on board and one car to on board the other to really get that sensation of closing speed. And Bicknell now, well, he is on a mission to the inside of Paul Quinn, another one of the more experienced drivers. Paul has been tremendous, winning races in Class A quite regularly this season. A lot of experience in having raced in Formula 3 and also raced in the States in the Barber Saab series, which was a series that brought us people like Juan Pablo Montoya amongst others. So a lot of these guys, lots of experience all over the world, and certainly Bicknell is working his way through the pack very, very quickly at this stage. At the back of one of the 211s, and somebody off track there off to our right. Couldn't quite see who that was. Gets the job done, gets down the inside, and seems to have just dealt with that very, very quickly. Meanwhile, the 43 car of Martin Johnston just coming through the shot, another of the Full Speed Racing cars, and then, well, it's basically you've got a leader at the front, and then everybody else seems to be in second place. It just seems to go on and on and on and on and on. And that's what makes this racing so thrilling to be involved with. Everybody that's racing in this series has had such a great time. Lotus On Track, and have managed to find a fantastic balance between really, really good quality racing, mixture of some modified cars and some standard cars, drivers with lots of experience, drivers with limited experience, and drivers who are total novices, and lots of novice crosses on the back of the cars. You'll see the little yellow square with a black cross on it, telling it that that driver has only just started his motorsport experience, and that is what makes this series so interesting, because literally all sorts of drivers, or anyone with any kind of background, can pretty much get involved and have a great time out there. Martin Donnelly, just edging away a little bit now from Headlam, and that seems to sort of stabilise a little bit the gap between Johnson and but Donnelly and our race leader there, Andrew Walsh. Walsh seems to be dealing with the pace very, very well at this stage, just edging away a little bit Slightly longer race now, 40 minutes this race in total, as opposed to the 30-minute race that we saw earlier on this weekend, which was dominated by Andrew Walsh. A 32nd victory, remember, that he managed to achieve there. Tremendous stuff. Just made it look easy. I'm sure at one point he was showboating as well. He certainly seemed to be very sideways going through the Eau Rouge hairpin. The La Source hairpin. This is Eau Rouge that they're charging through now. And 49 Steve Wentz. Oh, what a bit of contact there between Eric Chappard getting turned around. Well, that must have really focused his attention. You can see one of the spectators popping up into our camera shot, clearly as interested in what was going on as we were. You can see a cloud of dust there as they come through. They come indicative of somebody running wide. You can see summertime weather at Spa, tremendous to have. Invariably, you watch motorsport at Spa and you see just mixtures of clouds of rain and then a bit of sun and a bit of wind, a bit of everything. And the only wind at the moment is being created by the hole in the air that Andrew Walsh is creating between him and his compatriots. The cameraman excited by the action, trying to keep up with what's going on. As this endless list of Lotuses come through. 42 car and Mark Goodey, another one. Now Bicknell already has worked his way through. Sean Bicknell in the 19 car. We saw some tremendous onboard shots of his progress a little bit earlier. Martin Johnson once again comes through. Bicknell has managed to get himself into the top 6 already. Goodey is going to see very, very quickly. Headlam now has just got a little bit of a break from Ben Pitch. Both those guys had a tremendous battle earlier on this weekend. And certainly that scrap could run and run, but I think they may have to contend with this guy. Sean Bicknell seems to have got this car working so well. Audi turbo engine, it's got some different configurations in the modified class, the C category here that a lot of the cars run in. Certainly the faster of the cars like Martin Donnelly's car and Andrew Walsh's car, Chris Headlam, for example, they're running very well. In fact, Ben Pitch running in the B category is certainly one of the drivers that's really impressed us most in terms of his overall pace, and just shows you that with the Lotus chassis being so good, really could have been designed for this circuit, couldn't it? Bearing in mind it was designed on the flats of Norfolk, couldn't ask for much more different topography if you tried. Andrew Walsh doesn't seem to make much odds where he is in the world in terms of his pace. He certainly has got a fantastic technique and an incredibly fast car. You watch the car punching out of the corners and it's really hunched down at the back as all that power gets delivered to the rear wheels. And he seems to be able to deal with just about any circuit and any scenario. Seem to be fast in the wet, dry, slow tracks, just about everywhere. This man, though, has not given up. The Northern Irishman Martin Donnelly, a man who was a race winner in Formula 3 here at Spa-Francorchamps, going back around about 20 years ago. Of course, a teammate to Damon Hill, that's Paul Quinn. He's raced in F3 as well, mainly in the ARP series, which was for slightly older cars. So a single-seater driver. A lot of the single-seater drivers, they tend to adapt very well to sports cars and saloon cars, moving across to that kind of driving with relatively little effort. Seems to be something they can take in their stride quite well. Edwards watching with interest as Quinn is using every bit of the road here up in the Ardennes Mountains. You can see it really is the Ardennes Mountains, hills out here. You can see all the beautiful countryside, the trees in the distance. That helps to explain. Oh, but Michael Edwards might have been too busy watching the scenery because he's just dropped it the fearsome Pearson corner. The double left-hander there just dropped the wheel off. The back of the car got into a little twitch and just a slight overcorrection. You can see all the rubber there on the outside of the circuit on this tarmac runoff area that you find on a F1 style circuit, where that's been introduced as a replacement to the gravel traps that we used to see everywhere. Certainly from Michael Edwards' point of view, if that had been a gravel trap, that would have been game over for the day. And we Broad comes through our shot there in the 23 car. Behind that, the 46 charging through to close down. Car ahead, Quinn once again driving smoothly as you expect with him. Very, very experienced driver. Right just ahead of him was Marcus Jorg. Gary Broad once again, and here is Michael Edwards just getting stuck into the bus stop chicane. Look at the back of the car ahead, just twitching around, moving, and that's been costing 3 places. Michael Edwards was looking like he was going to be ahead of that scrap with Marcus Jorg there, and Gary Broad and Stuart Kirkbride and all those guys, but now sitting there behind trying to make his way back through. But Sean Bicknell, we're looking out of the windscreen of the number 19 Class C car, the red car of Sean Bicknell, out of the race. Real disappointment for Bicknell. Looked like he was going to be in a position to maybe even challenge for a podium. Who knows, even better than that perhaps. Comes down into the pits forlornly. See, there's that sort of universal hand signal in motorsport when the mechanics wave their hands saying sorry, game over. I'm sure that was probably replicated by Sean waving out the screen to these guys. Meanwhile, another man on an absolute mission from the back of the grid here, the number 18 car of Steve Williams. We saw him retire from race 1, started right towards the back now, and already he's getting himself into the sharp end of the field, or certainly up amongst it. Tom Chataway, and recovering Doug Setters after that spin that we saw. And somebody moving very slowly, moving across to the left-hand side and pulling off the circuit out of the race. Couldn't quite see the race number there, but relatively few incidents from that point of view throughout the weekend so far. Stuart McBride getting into a really nice scrap now with Marcus Jewell amongst others, and a big puff of smoke there from the 73 car, just chucking a little bit of smoke out the back there, causing a bit of a drama for the drivers behind. And needless to say, that's going to cause people to have to be a little bit careful just in case there was any oil maybe coming out the back. Of course, Adam Hamilton, our driver of 73, he had a bit of a problem there. Edwards, meanwhile, down the inside, just holds the car in tight into this section here called Piz Pack that leads through to then the famous Stavolo and onto this section down here, Blanchimont in the rain. And I used to race one of these things a few years ago. Was pretty spectacular, hanging on tightly to the car, just managing to keep it all in one piece. Meanwhile, overtaker plenty. Joel just having to try and fend off. Mind you, Edwards coming back through Gary Broad, not that far behind either. And the rest of the pack comes through. This is our race leader, though. He just certainly looks like he's driving away from everybody. Donnelly did seem at one point look like he was going to be closing him down, but it seems to have stabilised. That distinctive orange and blue crash helmet, showing his patriotism for his home country, of course, of Northern Ireland. And it looks to me like it's going to be Donnelly taking his pit stop now. One of the things that shakes up this particular race compared to the race that we've seen earlier this weekend at Spa is there has to be a mandatory pit stop for all of the drivers. They come in, they have to get out of the car, and they take a time penalty based on their success on the previous race or where they finished, and then they will be able to get back in, get strapped back in again. There's Mark Speller just at the front on the left of the car. The rest of his boys all helping Martin out of the car. Still a bit hampered by the injuries from going back to Jerez in 1990, a horrific accident he had in Formula 1, but hops out, both feet on the ground. The boys get him back in the car, get the belt secured, make sure the crutch straps are in position, the shoulder straps, everything else. Steve Williams charges by. Probably doesn't even realise that Martin's in the pits at this stage. All of the drivers have got to come in. Oh, a little wobble there from Williams going through Eau Rouge. Really was quite a dramatic place to have a moment. Now this is going to be significant. If they've timed this right and if they've got the sequence right, Martin Donnelly could have put himself into a very strong position for the latter part of the race, depending on what happens with Andrew Walsh when he comes in for his stop. We're going to see more and more drivers moving over to the right-hand side of the circuit to bring the cars in. I think we might have just seen Martin Johnson coming in, so maybe the FSR boys have decided to bring their cars in early, get the pit stop done, and hope that they can do it with a little bit less pressure, get the car sorted out, back out on track. There's our race leader. Obviously has an even bigger lead at this point as a result of Donnelly's stop. In the background, more cars coming in now for their stops, so we're going to have that situation that you get with any race where there's pit stops that affect things. You see it in Formula 1, in sports car racing, just about everything, that it suddenly all gets shaken around. Matthew Bartlett putting pressure on Tom Chataway. Bartlett in the red and white, number 30, Kirkbride and Jewell. Well, this scrap has been going on for a while now, and it's almost a bit like when you see sometimes people when they go indoor karting and they're having a scrap with one of their friends, they just keep waiting for each other. They're having so much fun racing hard. Now in the pits, I think that's Bicknell's car at the top of the shot, the red car well and truly out of the race, unfortunately. I don't think there's any chance of seeing Sean reappear, unfortunately. Andrew Walsh, though, seems to be just trying to get a few more laps under his belt. Meanwhile, the Other cars start to bring their way back out of the pits. There's Damien Murray coming out in Pirate racing car. Michael Edwards now seems to be in trouble. I wonder what's going on. There's something from the back that looks to me not just like tyre smoke. That looked to me like it could have been steam coming from the back of the car. And I wonder if that could well be the end of his race. It certainly does have that ominous kind of look about it. He looks like he's going to be pulling up and stopping. The green flag waves in the background to let the rest of the guys know that his car's out the way. Meanwhile, Joel and Kirkbride swapping positions all the time. Looks like Joel's going to get a better run out of La Source, charging down the hill. You really don't get the sensation of just how steep that is. Having walked up this hill here to watch some racing when I was out here the last time, you really do realise it's such an amazing topography here at Spa-Francorchamps. It really does create something special. Phil Chatterton in his car just working his way through P1, and a big spin. Well, that's really will have woken up Steve Wenzel, I think, because of all the places you're going to have a spin. That's one of the highest speed corners. We saw Michael Edwards have a similar problem. It seems to be cursing drivers through there, doesn't it? And I wonder, maybe we just saw that Michael Edwards retiring there. I wonder if perhaps there was a little bit of water that had been dropped from his car earlier in the lap. Could have been that, or it could have just simply been Steve Wenzel being a little bit over enthusiastic through there and catching himself out. Kirkbride, though, still keeps Joel behind him. These guys have scrapped at all sorts of circuits throughout the UK before, so now bringing it into European waters, as it were. Paul Quinn just going through our shot there. He seems fairly untroubled. The gap is fairly significant. Joel now is ahead. He's managed to get himself ahead of Kirkbride. Didn't see where that one happened. Could have been down at the Bruxelles chicane, which is, hairpin, which is a couple of corners before Puan. But all of this section here, there isn't really a corner anywhere at Spa-Francorchamps that the drivers don't enjoy. All of them have got a wonderful flow and challenge to them. Even the chicane at the end of the lap is different to what you'll have experienced elsewhere, where it goes up and over a brow and then drops away in the middle. Traction's at a premium through there. The PQR Paul Quinn racing car seems to have best got himself in a position where he's just driving further and further away, leading the class. And behind him, Marcus Jewell are in that scrap. Not far away from that is Gary Borden at the 99 car of James Knight, looking very competitive. Doug Setter's coming through again. And I think there's a good chance that these guys could start to get in the mix for a possible top 3 in the cars. At the moment, it's looking likely that could effectively work out for any of those guys, because pit stops are all these things that are going to affect the latter part of the race. Meanwhile, the rest of the cars come through. Mike Davis just going through our shot. Our race leader once again comes into view. Walsh neatly through the bus stop chicane. As he comes out, powers down over the curbs on the inside, the outside, gets the car straight, brings it over to the left to brake hard once again for La Source. Wenzel, meanwhile, looking in his mirrors at Mike Davis. And the other car behind that was Phil Hatswell in the 52 car. Now, this looks to me like Andrew Walsh is bringing the car over to the right-hand side for a reason, and that reason is he's bringing his car in for his mandatory pit stop. Speed limit 60 kilometres an hour, keeps the speed down, keeps it neat and tidy. The team are ready for him. Slightly less spectacular than the Ferrari F1 team's pit stop system of lights and systems. Andrew crawling away from the car, and a little cardboard box used as a stop. Well, it's certainly basic but effective. Martin Donnelly, though, has taken the lead as a result. And Walsh is going to have to work very hard to get himself back on turns with the Irishman. He gets back in again. The guy in the white suit is a fueler as opposed to a driver. It is still Andrew Walsh. We're not having a driver change in this race. So perhaps it was just a cautionary top-up of fuel. Perhaps explains just, although this car is very quick, maybe it's also because of the modifications that make it so fast, it could affect the fuel consumption away from the more standard cars. Usually, of course, the Lotus Exigis and Elises are always pretty good in terms of that respect compared to some of its competition. Look at this one, the pit exit all the way up the hill. Just keep climbing and climbing and climbing over to the right, staying way off the racing line, which is very important because you can imagine how quick the cars are travelling as they come through Eau Rouge. And Andrew Walsh is on his way. He's now got to wait and see where he comes out in relative terms to Martin Donnelly, but I'm pretty certain that Martin Donnelly has got a fairly significant lead at this stage after that stop. It doesn't seem to be a stop that worked out in Andrew Walsh's favour at all. Marcus Jewell, indicator on. Does that mean a pit stop? I wonder. It certainly looks like it. And of course, surely his mate's got to come with him. Stuart Kirkbride's going to come in and join the party. Doug Setter's coming in as well. He's going to get a very, very busy pit lane at Spa-Francorchamps any moment now. Yes, the drivers come in. Same speed limit for all of the drivers, 60 kilometres. Meanwhile, Mark Gooday sweeps past. There's a clear circuit as they come down this beautiful warm afternoon here at Spa-Francorchamps. Certainly for the guys in the 211s and the open top cars, they're going to be very grateful for some of the traditional Spa rainy weather to have stayed away and left them to enjoy the racing in peace, and certainly in warmth, if nothing else. Another stop coming up for the guys moving across to the right hand side. Gary Broad brings his car down the pits and he's going to bring it over for his mandatory stop. His friends helping him out there. Belts off, out he gets. Little bit of a comedy moment there for Gary, getting both feet well and truly on the ground before he jumps back in again. And it's nice to see that, as ever, with the Lotus On Track Series, sport is the main thing that people are getting out of what's going on today. Certainly a different way of going about pit stops to some of the forms of motorsport that perhaps take themselves a bit too seriously. Not that these guys aren't enjoying it and having a great time at the same time as well. So there you see Chris Headlam now, who's worked his way towards the front. It looks like he is in a very good position to potentially get himself a podium finish here at Spa, and that will be something to cherish forever. Meanwhile, Paul Quinn now has Andrew Walsh in his mirrors, and that's perhaps indicative of just how much time Walsh has lost. And you show just how quick Andrew Walsh's car in a straight line just absolutely charges past Paul Quinn. Paul Quinn, the fastest of the Class A drivers by some way overall, and certainly didn't seem to have much to answer there. Ben Pitch, well, a light missing after some contact earlier on this weekend. And he had a great start, but unfortunately a little bit of a moment dropped him back behind the guys running at the very front, so not quite as far up as perhaps his pace would deserve. But remember, he is in a Class B car and he is doing a tremendous job. So effectively, for most of the races that we see in Lotus On Track, you have classes A, B and C, the A class being the standard cars, B class slightly modified, C classes gives you pretty much a free rein in terms of performance in lots of ways. Plus you have the 211s as well, usually running their own class, but for here this weekend at Spa, running in a mixture of the B and C class. Walsh though, looks like he's now got himself in a position to be challenging Ben Pitch as they sweep through what's known as the Piff Paff down here into this right-hander as Stavelot. That's going to lead them ultimately to the end of the lap as they come charging down through the fast right-hander. Then we're going to sweep left into Blanchimont eventually, and ending up finishing the lap at the bus stop chicane. You can see Walsh, the power kicks in now. The difference between a heavily modified car and a less so car does become very apparent. The modification seems to be the visible one with Ben Pitch's car, where his light's missing, but certainly Andrew Walsh's car is just absolutely flying. Just ahead, some of the other cars, Damien Murray there turning into the bus stop chicane. As you saw there, Walsh would seem to be a constant technique. We mentioned earlier that it looked like he was showboating a bit and sliding the car around. I wonder if it's just, that's his technique. He likes to throw the car sideways and pick the car up on the throttle. And seems to be dealing well. Murray gets passed by Pitch as well now. And Pitch is just going to sweep down into Eau Rouge. One curb, then the next curb. Every time you go through there as a racing driver, you clench up. You really do feel like, oh, am I going to get through here neatly? Is the car going to do something I don't want it to do? But if you're going to be racing anything around here, a Lotus has got to be one of the best forms of motorsport you can choose because of the poise of the chassis, the way that the car works so well. Phil Hatswell coming through our shot just ahead of Martin Roberts. Then it is our race leader Donnelly coming through. Hans Baumhart not that far behind, and someone with indicators or hazard warnings lights on there. That would have been Andrew Kell having some dramas. Well, the entry, it says on Andrew Kell's entry list here at Spa, is Honda's gone bang, so I think they might refer to one of his previous motive powers that he had in the car. Bob Montgomery in the yellow 211 just being passed by the charging Andrew Walsh, who's just slicing through the field. He really has got absolutely his head down in terms of a mission of working his way to the front as quickly as possible. seem to be having too many problems just ahead. We saw the black car of Christopher Sandra. Did very well in the early race this week in pitch though. Almost running out of road a little bit, having to really hold the car in the middle of the section on the brakes because the back was trying to move around a bit on the technique that the drivers will tend to use into slow corners is tend to be braking hard in a straight line, then rolling a bit of the braking into the corner to hold the nose down. It helps the car to turn. That could be the technique that we're seeing Andrew Walsh use regularly. If he's a driver in the red Class A car just at the back of that pack. Headlam sweeps past, now under pressure from Walsh. Looks to me that this could be a change for second place. I think it is going to be. Surely Andrew Walsh is going to work his way into second place. I don't think there's going to be much that Chris Headlam can do about the charging Walsh. He certainly seems to have an element of inevitability about it. Phil Chatterton once again coming through our shot as out of the pits comes another competitor, Mike Davis, coming out after his mandatory stop. Great idea this to shake up results. One of the great things about Lotus On Track is they haven't stuck to any stayed formula virtually every weekend. We've seen things like handicap races, we've seen grids reversed, we've seen all kinds of things that have made the racing always interesting. It means that we've had people getting podiums when perhaps they wouldn't have expected to, and some people who'd be certain would win perhaps further down than you thought. It just makes the whole thing so much more challenging for the drivers and the teams, and certainly it's created an awful lot of interest and excitement. The main thing is that we're going to see big grids once again for 2009. We're going to see more people out there racing, and certainly we're going to see the action, if you can believe it, even better than we've seen so far in 2008. Walsh now over Headlam, it does look like, down the inside into the Brussels chicane. Headlam just almost expecting him to be through there, giving him a little bit of room, perhaps a bit too much room, being a bit too careful there. He's going to turn through the left-hander, then sweep down towards the double left at Pouhon. Very, very fast, daunting corner. Basically tagging the brakes and then picking the throttle up as early as you can. But with traffic ahead, it's going to be very, very difficult to get that done. Tess Howell, she keeps an eye on her mirrors and just allows the two faster cars to come through. So Walsh understandably sits back, just waits for a better opportunity into the first of the fifth corners here. The right-hander, is he going to have a look there? Maybe down the inside. Headlam's just giving him enough room. But no, he sweeps back across. As they come through the left-hand part, then leading down into Stevelo. It's going to be interesting to see where Walsh does this. I think he's going to just sit behind